final matchup, who determines where they're going, who's playing in the grand final for $20,000 in the grand prize. The teams, University of British Columbia, a perennial favorite, and the winners last year, versus some upstart superstars in UC Davis. This should be a very good match and an awful lot of fun, Gorgon. Before we get into talking about the draft and what's going on in the future of this game, let's give a quick shout out to those who have made it possible. Obviously, if you're watching this, you're watching on twitch.tv, the #1 streaming platform in esports. Without their help, we wouldn't be what we are today.
And don't forget about Twitch Student, that new social platform that they're launching. If you want more information about that, we've got some coming up on the stream in a little bit.
I've heard the best way to go to a Twitch job is through Twitch Student or something in that ballpark. So go check it out. It's very, very cool. Second, Band Gaming is the ultimate app for esports. Whether it's competitive WoW or playing a great game like Dota2, the best way to communicate with your team, keep them together, keep your calendars in order, and just talk is Band Gaming. So make sure you check them out. And then, of course, Asus Republic of Gamers, responsible for so much of the equipment that you're seeing here today. In fact, what kind of equipment are we running today?
I mean, we're on the GL502s, right? And I personally, this is about as good as my home rig, which is a desktop. Asus has done a beautiful job with these machines, and I'm personally having a great time on them.
Absolutely. So we're pretty happy to have them here. In fact, we have a couple of words from those who've made it all possible, and then we'll come back with a recap of the earlier games today and a look at what's to come. Thank you. Welcome back. So before we get into the actual game itself, Gordon, I think it's interesting that we sort of look at where we came from and where we're going. And first thing I want to do is I want to talk about, this is the semifinals. There's a pretty big payout difference, obviously, between winning third, fourth, and winning first place. And to get there, you've got to go through the semis. And that's what we're about to see from these guys, what we saw earlier. Talk to me a little bit about what we saw from the earlier matchup between UConn and University of Long Beach.
So UConn and Long Beach really had an interesting dynamic in that Long Beach felt very confident with the way that they were drafting. They refused to change their game plan into UConn. And for the most part, small mistakes that added up to just a devastating defeat for them. UConn really did a very good job of adjusting the way that they're approaching the game and approaching their opponents right at the limitations of their skill. There were a couple of moments there for Long Beach where it looked like they might be able to come back in game two.
In the second game.
On the back of Quan and the mid-tiny, he was just able to get out with a blink dagger that he got late, but in time to make a difference, and found a couple of picks. But the second that started happening, we could instantly hear the chatter from UConn responding. They're very vocal, they're communicative, and they got themselves back together, and just there was nothing that Long Beach could do at that point. Now, if I'm one of these two teams looking ahead at the finals, the most important thing I'm thinking about is how did UConn outmaneuver their opponents so badly, and what did Long Beach do in the draft that they could have avoided in order to keep UConn from being so dominating?
Absolutely, and I think you touched on something interesting with you heard them respond. It reminded me, if you watch those highlight videos from around TI3, when the teams were getting so passionate in the booth and like yelling and shouting and just getting really fired up. We saw a little bit of that on stage today, and that was kind of a lot of fun. It's something I feel like we don't get as often as we used to, especially in the pro scene, but really in Dota in general. it was just 5 players who got very impassioned over a gank and expressed it to each other.
Dota used to be much more hot-blooded than it is now. And when you think about the even at the pro level, the best players in the world used to be these guys that would go out and be extremely aggressive and just be mechanically superior to their opponents. Na'Vi, TI1, all they did was be better, like mechanically at the game. And as the game goes on, that skill gap is getting compressed, and that's happening a little bit as well here in the CSL. The skill gap between the top teams is much less significant over the years, and that makes communication more important, but it also makes keeping a mental attitude that's clear and having a plumb and clarity as you are looking ahead at your match. You can't be too loud, you can't get distracted, you can't get tilted. You need to be thinking about the game at all times and allowing your teammates to do so as well.
There's still a little bit of room for passion in college Dota.
There is absolutely room for passion, but it has to be the right moments and the right times, and that's what we saw at UConn.
And we saw some great stuff. We saw 2 teams who have come up against a lot of difficulties, especially in the case of UConn, barely able to get their visas. For those of you who maybe missed the first game, UConn advanced, but all 5 of them had to get visas to be here, and they didn't get those visas until the day before their flight. In fact, their support wasn't even able to practice with them because he was waiting in New York for the visas to process. We'll talk more about that in the grand finals where we'll get to see them again. But the teams that are up now, they're the ones who are playing to go up against UConn in the last round. And these are 2 teams that are both pedigreed, are both known for their high level of performance. Let's start out with UBC. University of British Columbia, local favorites from Canada. They are also the returning champions. They come from a school that has an esports pedigree to it. Is this a David and Goliath type of matchup?
This is definitely a matchup with a favorite, but to be fair, UC Davis was also one of the favorites coming in through the entire season. I almost said series, but because we have 2 seasons or 2 half-season splits in the CSL. But honestly, UC Davis was ahead of the pack throughout almost the whole thing. The only games they dropped were games that they were openly experimenting with the way that they were either going to do roles or the way that they were going to communicate or the way they were drafting, something like that. Basically, the games they dropped were games that they were treating like scrims. And that does make them a scary opponent if you're UBC.
Especially scary because the idea that UC Davis is coming in off the back of, they've got a player like Chocobo, who is a very strong support, up and coming in the North American region, but also a great researcher, does a lot of study to make sure that their team is prepared for these matches, and gets them set up to go, moving forward in these games. And I think the most important thing we're going to see, to me, in this match that's going to differentiate us going into game 1 is how these drafts break down. I know both of these teams have been looking at getting prepared for this draft, so I'm pretty excited about seeing what they bring to the stage.
I think we do have the game starting here in just a minute, so we're going to be transitioning into the draft here very shortly, but I do want to touch on something that you said, that there's strong research coming out of UC Davis, but at the same time, UBC have been doing a bit of a smokescreen themselves, right? Like, all the other teams were at a LAN center that was provided by the organization yesterday. UBC opted to go to a private location and scrim on their own to make sure that everything is absolutely crystal clean and there's no spillover for their opponents. Now, that might pay off for them, that might not pay off for them, but the fact that they're already actively trying to counter Chocobo's research is interesting in and of itself.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we do have a little more information about UC Davis because we were able to sort of track them down and get outside of their secretive drafting schedule that we saw from UBC. That said, I expect a really tall order of a high level of difficulty, I guess, for Davis to take them down because UBC comes in with an insane level of confidence, right? These are the guys who are re-representing what they did last year. They know that they play well. They know that they've got the pedigree. The question is, does that add too much pressure?
I don't know that it adds too much pressure, but it does add pressure. Different players respond to pressure in different ways. Some players use it to elevate their performance, and some players use it to basically overwhelm themselves, right? It really comes down to how well do you handle your own personal expectations, and how much do the expectations of others impact the way that you see your role in the event. I mean, they've already made it very far. All the players, all the teams that have made it this far in CSL have a lot to be proud of, but I don't think that this team is going to be satisfied unless they walk home year 2 winners.
Absolutely. And it is also worth noting, these are the only 2 teams at the tournament out of the 4 that came that have their original, like their main 5 roster, that didn't put something special together for playoffs or doesn't have somebody who missed out because of a visa issue. We did see UC Davis, one of their players couldn't come in until last night because the professor wouldn't let them postpone a final, which I find very interesting.
That's a perfect example of sort of, we talk all the time about how these are not pro players, they're very high skill players, but you're going to see different types of plays at the CSL. And it's because they're balancing life, they're balancing becoming fully functional adult human beings with jobs and school and not just the academics, but any other recreational things that they're doing or outside of their classes at this age. They have a lot of obligations going in. And the fact that they had a player that had to wait behind to take a final is a really good example of the sort of pedigree that these players are able to play at this level despite the fact that they're doing all of this on top of Dota.
Right, as we watch these games, you want to remember, these aren't players living in a player house like the pros are nowadays with cooks and masseuses and physical therapists. These are college students who are just the best at what they do in terms of playing Dota, and they're not slouches. These are some high MMR players. These are some quality players who know what they're doing. That said, though, Gorgon, I think it's time for the draft.
Yeah, we're already getting into the draft. UBC instantly banning out both the Lifestealer and the Juggernaut. These Lifestealer is one of the more played heroes for UC Davis over the finals bracket. And I think that that's a really good ban. Not only is it very common for them, but it's common in general.
It is, but if you talk to UC Davis, generally they'll tell you Lifestealer is not one of our go-tos. In fact, when they played Cornell, they felt like they took the Lifestealer because it was offered to them, but not because they said, this is one of our great heroes.
Yeah.
So that's a great boon for them. For them to have a first ban of a hero that really they just played because it was available in the semifinals means that might give them the slot to pick up one of those heroes they need to push through here.
Yeah, I think for UCD, they will take the Lifestealer anytime it's available and they feel like it'll fit. They do play more than half their games overall in the bracket, but I would never accuse UCD of needing that in their pool. In fact, they have one of the more diverse hero pools, I think, at this event, if not the most diverse hero pool. Treant Protector is going to come out all morning long. This fresh hero into Captain's Mode was banned out in the first round, and this is going to be the first game we get to see him in action.
Should be a lot of fun to watch him, especially in the hands of a team like UBC. That said, UC Davis, when I talked to them earlier, they told me that they like to focus on the first pick and then see what happens from there. So we know that Darkseer was something that they wanted to start this game with, and that the rest of the picks are going to sort of be in response to what they see so far. It should be very interesting. I also know that they draft together as a group, and it sounds like each player has the most amount of insight over what they play.
There's a lot of invis coming out in this draft. We got a Nyx Assassin, a Ricky, and a Treant Protector. I would be very surprised if Slaughter goes both unpicked and unbanned.
Right, no, I would buy stock in Sentry Wards because they're going to be selling through the roof in this match as well as the Dust. So definitely keep an eye on that. But it's going to be curious. Initially, the draft and the original calls we're going to see come out of Chocobo, and they shift to the main. UBC a little more amorphous in terms of how they handle their calls. We're going to be having Chu in the 1 position. He's going to have a lot to dealing with this Darkseer and this Ricky so far. Ricky's going to be a huge problem with his rotations around the map. If you're sitting on top of UBC's draft right now, what are you looking to get to sort of deal with what you saw come out of UC Davis's pick so far?
So one thing that they need to make sure that they're able to do is take fights in a more scattered sense. They don't want to all be grouped up, or they need a counter initiation tool. Something like a Wyvern ult might be very good. Because if they find themselves in a position where a Darkseer has a vacuum wall into a Tricks of the Trade, and more importantly, a smoke screen, that's going to be a devastating mid-game fight. They're already well on their way to that, both Treant Protector and Nyx Assassin, heroes that can play around the edges of fights. Now they need a mid that can be a pace setter, somebody who can activate into the game very quickly and kind of take the lead on damage. And they need a carry who's going to be able to follow up extremely effectively. Somebody like maybe a Troll Warlord.
Right, and they did get rid of 2 very effective mids, pace setters there with the Invoker and the Ember Spirit. We saw Invoker in Yukon's hand in the last game, and it was absolutely devastating to see Melody running that Invoker. So it looks like the Aggies not interested in seeing UBC do something similar. UBC comes out with the Spectre, another hero who has been very high impact in these games recently. What is it about Spectre as a carry that makes him so impactful in these messages?
I mean, this is a perfect Spectre pick for the reason that I was just saying, in that you need a hero who's able to kind of hang out behind until a lot of the AoE that UC Davis has either been activated or has been killed off. And Spectre is able to move into a fight, pick around the edges, while simultaneously impacting the whole fight in a really safe way. So not only is Spectre going to give you that sort of backline activation for these fights, but she also goes into the late game really effectively. So if she doesn't feel safe moving in onto those engagements, she can throw her ult, splash some damage, stay and farm somewhere else, while the Nyx Assassin and Stream Protector march around invisible and try to activate other aspects of the map.
Absolutely. So we see Ursa picked up to presumably go into the carry position with the Crystal Maiden on lane. Those two pit synergize very, very well.
Yeah.
My question is, one of the values of Crystal Maiden, right, is that she can come out and pair with Ursa for some good potential picks, but she also can float away and do some jungler rotations. Does the Nyx Assassin pickup going to hurt that pick? Is Chocobo going to struggle in this game with the Crystal Maiden because of the Nyx?
The Crystal Maiden certainly could struggle. I mean, Nyx Assassin is a really good hero into Crystal Maiden. Yeah. One of the aspects of Crystal Maiden that make it difficult to deal with the Nyx Assassin is that she will always have mana, right, because of the nature of Arcane Aura, right? She's always going to be subject to a very large mana burn. Now, granted, she very rarely is going to run out of mana if Nyx engages on her, so in team fights that works out, but she's vulnerable to being ganked, especially because, like you said, this is a hero that tries to get levels by making the safe lane safe and then getting off the map.
And now, just to refresh my memory about how physical interaction, the spiked carapace on the Nyx Assassin that does the mini stun when procced, can you use that to stop a Crystal Maiden's ultimate?
You absolutely can.
Okay. So that's another thing that Crystal Maiden is going to definitely struggle with. We talked about how much damage she can do from the trees. That's a good way to stop it.
UBC picking up a Zeus here. That's actually a really interesting pick. They don't have a lot of other magic damage, so you're probably not going to see a rushed pipe, which is the dread of a Zeus. But also it helps with the invisibility, right? It does have a mini stun to cancel out the Crystal Maiden. Zeus can stay pretty far back and still cancel blink daggers from the Ursa. The one big struggle that Zeus might have is that there's no way for Zeus to create a mischance. If the Ursa jumps on Zeus before Zeus is able to see him, he's just dead.
It's gonna make Ricky's ganks in mid near impossible. His rotation's gonna be a lot harder. The other big value of Zeus, obviously, a lot of people typically when you talk about pub Zeus, his ultimate is basically there to try to pick up a kill at the end of a fight, right? What I expect to see UBC doing is using that to scout the map effectively. Make sure that they know where the Ricky is at all times, make sure they know where the Crystal Maiden is, and control the map vision. Also, it seems to me that UBC is going for, in its own way, a little bit of a I don't want to say 4 protect one, but it's going to give Spectre plenty of time to farm, because Zeus is one of those heroes that if he has a decent start to a laning phase, he can completely control the tempo of a match until about 35 minutes.
Yeah, the big issues that Zeus normally has really aren't present in this map. And you also have a huge global potential here, right?
Yeah.
Nyx Assassin and Treant Protector can be anywhere, not instantly, but they could be anywhere because both of them are invisible most of the game. Spectre can go anywhere at any time. Zeus obviously has a global in Thunder God's Wrath. But if you see another global picked up, and you can actually tell that this is on UC Davis Agi's mind. They got rid of the Invoker for the Sunstrike. They got rid of the Ember Spirit for the Remnant In. They got rid of the Silencer for Global Silence. They know something else is coming. Presumably, this is a support Nyx Assassin.
That's what I'm going to ask you.
But it could be an offlane Nyx Assassin with like an Ancient Apparition
Ancient
to come.
Apparition would be pretty nice. So Jakiro's going to come out.
They love
global,
Jakiro. UBC does. Yeah.
But again, this falls into the let's make a lot of space for the Spectre, because nothing annoys towers or creates tower push potential like a Jakiro Liquid Fire. He's got the potential to clear waves by himself as well as lock people out. So there's a potential that they can just make as much space as they want for Spectre to spend his time farming and then jumping into fights when it becomes relevant.
Yeah, there's a big issue for Jakiro typically as well, in that he's not super survivable, and he's usually used to push or split push towers, which puts them in vulnerable positions. Now, in this specific situation, they basically cleared that up by the fact that he could be supported by an invisible Nyx Assassin. Spectre can be in at any time. Zeus can help him out, and the Treant Protector could be there as well. So you can't just jump on a solo Jakiro unless you scouted the area out or you have several heroes. Anytime you jump on a lone Jakiro, you basically have to be prepared for a team fight. And the Storm Spirit's going to come out here. That's great up into the Zeus. It has a lot of mobility, a lot of lockdown potential. Not as great into the Nyx Assassin or into the Spectre or into the Treant Protector necessarily. It certainly can be very helpful, but it really is going to depend on how the laning phase goes for Miss Pig.
Absolutely, and I think it's going to come very strongly down to the laning phase as we get this thing started. Guys, for those of you who are just joining us, welcome back to the CSL Grand Finals. This is the semifinal matchup. The grand final will be a little bit later today. By the winner of this best of 3 going up against the winners of the last best of 3, which were UConn.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a huge game. Returning champions to my left, big challengers to the right. in my opinion, potential to be the game of the day, Gorgon. I am very excited about this.
Yeah, I don't want to undersell UConn's potential to bring out a tremendous grand finals, but this is definitely a match that we have personally been waiting for weeks.
Absolutely. I'm very, very excited about it. And as we get loaded in here, we're going to check a look at battle levels and get this thing underway. So, University of British Columbia, very excited to see them play. KCY, Cow, Jellybean, Bob, Big Bun Theory, and Chew are going to be bringing it home. We'll do some quick introductions of these two teams as we get this thing underway. So for UBC, Big Bun Theory, in case you guys didn't know, kinesiology major. Chew, a economy major. We got Jellybean Bob, who it looks like is going to be playing the Nyx Assassin, also an economy major. Ko, who is in the 5 position on the Jakiro, is a Japanese language major, interestingly enough.
Huh.
And last but not least, KCY in the 4 position, who will be playing that Treant Protector, is a physics major. So a lot of science and math on this team.
Yeah, and moving over to the other team here, we are actually looking at a aggressive move here. I don't want to be too fast on the introductions because KCY is coming in very fast to contest this round.
I think he's going to be, I'll keep an eye on it, but I think you probably do the introduction. He's mostly just checking things out, putting down some wards. Absolutely. So UC Davis is the other side of the coin, boys and girls, and I'll take an introduction while you keep an eye on whether or not that fight's about to break out. Lucky 5'7" will be playing the Ursa, and he is a junior computer science major. MZ Pig is going to be playing, it looks like, the mid position. So we're going to see a poli-sci, I believe. Very, very cool. The rest of the team, it looks like Hope is going to be on the Darkseer. Hope is a political science major and a senior, so it's going to be his last year working with the team. Chocobo is a sophomore aerospace engineer and the planner for this team who puts everything together. So look for him going forward in the future years to really lead UC Davis, I think, into the future of that gaming club. Now, real quick, up on top, MZ Pig is messing around with KCY, who was doing the exact same thing on the bottom just a second ago. So we should see a lot of this invisibility scouting as everyone completely moves around the map.
Yeah, no rune is safe in this game.
No rune is safe.
We are seeing BG start to get pretty heavily harassed here by Cow in the mid lane. No escape potential from the Storm Spirit, so absolutely needs to be careful in this lane. And this is actually a really good decision to move Cow into the mid lane and harass out the Storm Spirit because he has so little survivability. He really struggles under pressure before level really 8, but 6 is the moment where he has at least some survivability.
Absolutely. So the lanes are sort of lining up exactly the way that we expected them to. Is there a lane that you think is going to be insanely important or a lot of action early on?
This mid lane.
The mid lane is going to be
the mid lane that we're already locked into is basically the lane where we're looking for activation, right? For the Storm Spirit, if he is completely zoned out, as is happening right now, it's going to be tremendously difficult to become relevant in this game. Now, if there are rotations in and this becomes more of a 2-on-2 situation, which I expect, in fact, we do a biology here, harassing out Cow. It'll probably sit on 2-on-2 for a little while in this mid lane, which is going to slow down the mids, but it's also probably where the majority of the action will be.
Absolutely. So we'll keep an eye on the map as it goes back and forth. That mid is going to be very difficult. So let's talk about, you talked about the boxing out of NZ Pig. What's NZ Pig's timing window? Like when you talk about boxing a Storm Spirit out, where does it put them completely in terms of this game?
Yeah, so BG, it's really a matter of how fast is his opponents getting, or how fast are his opponents getting online, right? As long as he is able to get up a bottle and a soul ring in time to move on to the Zeus without dying, that's a good enough time window. So you're talking about bottle and soul ring before 7 minutes, and maybe starting to get ganks before 9. You'll definitely want to get a bloodstone as early as possible, but it's not absolutely dire that he gets the bloodstone in a record time. What's most important is that he gets the earlier components of that bloodstone and that mana survivability up early enough to get ganks before the Nyx Assassin is just able to roll through him.
Absolutely. All right, so Chew up on top in that Spectre position. It seems to have a relatively tall order against him in terms of dealing with the Darkseer. Is that something that goes away eventually and they sort of balance out, or is he going to continue to have trouble
He'll
with
continue
this?
to have trouble. The Darkseer is really good into melee agility cores, right? Spectre does not have a stun. He does not have any method to harass the Darkseer. And so there's just no way for him to get onto the creeps.
Right.
Basically what their theory is that the Treant Protector, the threat of Treant Protector is going to force that Darkseer back eventually, and that might be true, but only if there are rotations up here, particularly if there's a rotation from the Zeus or maybe from the Jakiro, who is very aggressively positioned here and will actually catch out BG.
So BG got very low, was playing very aggressive up against the Zeus, took a couple of shots. Now he's got to fall backwards here, as Cole's got to be very careful. You can't go in too deep or you're going to be caught
That
out.
Storm is really fortunate, because if he had gotten 4 more steps before they clashed, he'd be dead.
Absolutely. So we're going to keep an eye on this. I keep waiting for the first blood. Oh, wait, maybe here up on top, as we got the chase going on. They're going to follow the
He'll be
Spectre
okay.
into the trees, but again, he's just got too much escape. He's too hard to take down at this stage of the game.
Yeah, he's sitting on top of the poor man's shield, but that doesn't really help him into the Darkseer, and that's another one of these reasons
Maybe
why.
down on bottom, his lucky 5/7's in the opposite position now, but again,
He should be
just
okay.
enough escape. They're running the margins, but when you talk about hurting these cores, you don't get the kill, but you force them that low. There we go. Treant Protector came in to help out on that top gank and ended up giving his own life.
Was that a dust? How did they see him? He must have moved out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but both of these cores now are basically out of region, although the Ursa's doing slightly better. Ursa's going to dive and manage to grab this Jakiro. Now he's got to run away. He should be just fine. Bellybeam Bob does not have any mana in order to move on. There's actually Crystal Maiden coming in with the root. There's going to be the Spike Carapace. It is his last line of defense, and for this time, Lucky's not willing to dive the tower.
Absolutely. No, the Spiked Carapace, the king of all escapes, especially at this stage of the game. If
Yeah.
you time it well, one of those things when you talk about pub play or middle level play, the Spiked Carapace, not always used effectively, but these players seem to really understand when to hold it for and make sure that they can use it to keep themselves safe.
All right, up top, we're going to see KCY move in, get the stun. It looks like they want to engage here, but I don't think they really have the damage to.
No,
And they've got to back off, or they're going to go down to this Ion Shell Ricky.
Yeah, Biology Hope is just too strong right now. Now, Chu does have the ability to slip away through the tree, so that's what he's consistently doing. But like you said, there's just a lot more damage than I think that they were prepared for. BG in the mid, still going head-to-head with Big Bun Theory, and Jakiro's arrived again, just to continue to give him a slight advantage, which is a pretty big deal. The Storm Spirit is level 5, but we're about to see Zeus flip over as well. Is a level advantage a big deal? Is Zeus willing to give away a level in order to take control of the last hits down here?
The level advantage actually is kind of a big deal for Storm Spirit, because like we...
Hold on, I'm
like,
going to interrupt you real quick when we go top. It is a Trace Chew through the trees. TP's coming out to help. Biology's going to track him around and see what he can find using the Ion Shell to try to get a kill here. Has to surge away, and they were going to leave Ricky behind. Ricky's invisible. They don't have vision on them, though, so he'll be able to hide. And 2 quick TPs by the support on the dire side are able to save the life of Chu.
Yeah, it saves his life, but they don't really have any plan for dealing with this guy. Moreover, you're talking about the strength of the Ion Shell. It's so much stronger we can throw it onto a Ricky, and there's no detection.
Right.
The Treant Protector did TP in here and does now have a sentry, but he's got just 1. So unless he happens to be engaging where that sentry was dropped, this is still going to be a really difficult lane for Q to get very much done. And you can see he's now a full 10 last hits behind the Ursa.
And that's not something you want to be. Now let's go back to the mid briefly, where you were talking, I think, about the level advantages regarding Zeus and Storm Spirit.
Sure, so how do you kill Storm Spirit after level 6 if he's able to maintain mana control? The
Right.
Nyx Assassin basically has to rotate in, get a good set of stuns, and also drain out the remainder of his mana so that he can't zip away too far. The Storm Spirit is 6 now, and he's basically gotten what he needs. He's also up on the last hits, and he's been 1-on-2 for a lot of this game, so he's pretty thoroughly outlaning old Big Bun Theory.
Yeah, he's definitely doing a great job there. Now, it looks like we see a little bit of a potential rotation in the offing from both teams as they prepare to get something done. The fresh 6 on Storm Spirit is sort of like a go-ahead move, right, in baseball. It's like, let's get out there, let's get a point on the board. The question is, how will they execute that? Do you think it's going to be going for Big Bun Theory here in the mid?
Yeah, they might. He's not very survivable, but he does typically have support around here, so it might be a dangerous call. However, moving on to the Spectre top, ironically, it's not what you would expect, but
Right.
that is a very vulnerable Spectre. She's only got a little bit of escape, which she's max Spectral Dagger in order to be able to get away, but moving up here, either finding the Treant Protector with some dust or finding the Spectre would be just devastating.
Yeah, so KCY doing a good job of playing his role, sort of the same thing we see Monkey Kings do nowadays, the sort of tracking and vision, the old PPD style of Tree and Protector. Spotted out the rotation, knew what they were doing, and even pinged the warding location. So while I saw one in inventory there, it's not there anymore. And it was something that I think we don't talk a lot about necessarily in Dota, the idea of how powerful vision is at this stage of the game.
Yeah, this is something that you hear pro analysts talk a ton about, but in terms of pub level Dota, in terms of amateur to semi-pro level Dota, usually the vision advantage in the laning phase, the team that understands how to maximize vision advantage, is the team that wins the laning phase. And Lucky, down bottom, getting a little too aggressive. Probably forgot about the Zeus ultimate. I actually heard them go, oh, at the desk over there. So maybe he wasn't actually aware that Zeus had sick.
Absolutely. Definitely a nice little move there. They brought them in. Nyx Assassin, worth noting, also now has 6, so he can utilize his Vendetta to go ahead and pick off some ganks. And this is a team that seems to cater towards AP potentially, so it would not surprise me to see them go forward with that in terms of rotating very quickly around the point.
Oh, nice deny, but just outside of range of the ground target.
So Crystal made it with a bit of a cheeky move, goes ahead and denies the haste turn to old Big Bun Theory, who's now got to be Big Bum Theory as he heads back to lane. Because I'll tell you what, I've played some Zeus in my life, and having a bottle fill denied is incredibly frustrating at this stage.
Yeah, the haste is the most valuable rune for a Zeus because he's able to get very close, do a ton of damage, but never feel unsafe. That's pretty much a guaranteed kill with the amount of burst damage that Zeus can put out at this stage of the game. So not having that basically cost them a kill as long as they were going to activate it correctly. The other thing about that is that now he can't feel safe harassing in lane because he doesn't have a full bottle. So he basically has to rely on a soul ring, which makes him more vulnerable to this rotation.
Well, 9 seconds left on his ultimate cooldown. He's got to now manage his mana a little more exceptional. Spam his last hitting mechanism.
They are going to move
lightning.
on him. They're going to move on him right
So
now. Here comes the Storm Spirit.
Big jump, gets up to connect. They're not even going to need the smoke, it looks like. He gets his ultimate off just in time, but it's not nearly enough. TP from the Jakiro, which ultimately gets canceled because why come in to the Doom world anyway? So a nice pick off on mid. They wanted to get that on Big Bun Theory. And again, it's one of those things like once the haste turn was gone, they knew there's nothing you can do to get away from that issue.
Yeah, remember I said like you want 7.5 minutes, you have both your bottle and your soul ring. By about 9 to 10 minutes, you're going to want to be starting to get kills on the Storm Spirit. And if you get that, it's not really the end of the world if the Bloodstone comes out late or on time, as long as you're maintaining your kill potential throughout that period. Storm Spirit's been doing a really good job of pacing himself this game. He's able to go into the jungle now and knock down some camps as well. He should be well on course to get a full Bloodstone here in the next couple of minutes, maybe 3.5 minutes.
So Biology has really just been following Jakiro for the last couple of seconds here, making sure he can't do any kind of initiation or defense. Meanwhile, up on top, it's a nice play by Hope. He found the Treant Protector and was able to sort of get some ion shell damage on him, just to sort of regulate that top lane. And that's to slow down their rotations. If they thought about making the push on the bottom, you can put some damage on those heroes. It means there's less chance of them coming in and helping out. Meanwhile, in the mid position, BG is very happily farming.
Look, top, Hope is doing some very deep plays. He is going to pay. They've got the Spectral Dagger. He's going to try to spin away. But there is going to be the hunt just to make sure they can close that gap. He's got 1 hit left, and that's going to be done by the Zeus in the back line.
I mean, the upside is he got him to spend a lot of resources, I suppose. But again, that just seemed very out of position. Now we're going to go to the mid, where again, they're going to find somebody. They make a big jump here on the walk. Finish off Zeus before he gets up. They're going to go to Bebop. Gets the double stun and finishes off 1. Then they make it 2 as well as there. And an easy double, baby, to make it 3 across the board as the boys from the Dire. They thought that they could get the hit. They thought, hey, Zeus is just walking away. But Zeus has friends, and those friends are in invisible places.
Well, most importantly about that whole thing, right? They just saw that the haunt was used. So they knew the Spectre couldn't come in and help out. They couldn't confuse the issue. What they didn't necessarily keep in mind is that Nyx Assassin is now level 6 or a little above probably, level 9, and is able to move in very effectively to cover up any route that his team is making. As long as he's under Vendetta, his team can move away from any engagement basically with impunity. And if his opponents move too aggressively, it can be a very quick turn. Now, up in the top lane,
looks like we're getting together for another fight potentially. The Vision's gonna get popped by Chocobo. Unfortunately, nobody around.
Well, KCY.
There they come in. He puts the loot out. He puts on a crosspath, divides the space smartly enough. No one from UBC bites the Crystal Maiden bait, and they stay back by tower to wait for a good initiation. BG comes up to a little bit of harass as well, but now they know where they are. And honestly, that was some pretty good self-control.
Yeah, that was actually a really good play here. They made a lot of noise up top. And meanwhile, the Ursa was able to just move into the mid lane, reveal his Blink Dagger, and destroy the Zeus, and that's a high priority target. If they just come dive the tower, they don't even need
Nice happens out, but it's not quite far enough to stop EG with the zip, gets one. They're making the base on Choo. Choo into the trees, tries to get himself away. Can he get out of this? I don't think so. Chocobo pops the ultimate, the job is finished, and they go 3 in the opposite direction. It's a back and forth game. The net worth only at 3,000, and honestly, this still is anyone's. We saw them smartly make to get Ursa the kill, and then they just went ahead and made another attack.
And the big problem that you're going to run into here is that the Storm Spirit has still gotten what he needs, and the Zeus arguably has not only 64 for the Zeus. Moreover, the Spectre is way, way behind, sitting even behind the Zeus in terms of last hits. He's not going to have space, and at this point in time, there's no reason to think he will, because once Ursa is online, he's going to rotate nonstop. Once the Storm is online, he will also just be all over your side of the map.
Absolutely, and it looks like he's chosen to build himself into a 4-staff potentially as his next piece. I was doing Aether Lens prior to that, but I think it's pretty telling. He's already
okay.
There's the smoke. Jelly comes up. Enough to try to make a getaway. Rotation. Now Radiant's got to make a run for the hills. They pick off 1 for UCD. Can they make it 2? Hope praying to get away, but Hope is crushed. And now Biology can't get out either, and it's another 3. 3 by 3 by 3. These guys are walking to their death. This is quite the back and forth game so far.
Especially because they presumably wanted to get everything out so that the Ursa was able to have free range Roche, or at least make his opponents feel like Roche was potential. Now granted, he does not have any lifesteal items, so he's not necessarily on course to take an early Roshan without the team being out. But they want to keep that area clean because it provides a lot more pressure onto the Dire side if they never know when that Roche is happening.
So down to the bottom we slip. It looks like the guys from Dire are going to continue their pressure in this game. It's been very backwards. We pull up the net worth chart, we're going to see literally UCD is still been in control, but UBC is doing everything again to pull that back. Up and down, up and down, up and down.
Yeah, and the Storm Spirit still does not have that Bloodstone, so nothing that happens at this stage.
Lucky 5-7 goes for Ko. He's going to get to the tower, turns back around, gets the slow. Ursa though wants to put in some work. He turns in, gets the silence. Huge. Now Nick's on the run. Jellybean Bob trying to get out of this one, but I don't care what flavor he is. His only flavor is dead, and he's sent back to base. An easy push now for UCD, a double kill. I mean, it's back and forth, but right now UCD feels like they're keeping their pace and their perspective in this game.
Yeah, this is becoming increasingly troublesome as well, because once again, nothing that happens here is really going to matter that much to UCD, other than the fact that they're able to take a couple objectives, and that makes their advance into their a little bit easier. When the Storm Spirit gets up the Bloodstone, that's when things really kick off, and he has the money for it now.
Absolutely. So let's take a look over at that. You brought up the network stack chart. We'll put it up for you real quick so you guys can see what's going on as we look at possibly a fight mid. Jellybean Bob finds himself some Chocobo, and there's finding himself the 5 support. That may cost no. Biology is here. Throws down the smoke. There's the chase. The zip as well. A huge spike. Carapace buys a ton of time, but the flames on Lucky 5-7 crushes him in the end. That plug will not be watching. We've got Biology coming in to help out. Ursa on the run. Spectre pops the ultimate, but it's not going to be enough. Back around to the shrine. They'll heal themselves up, and immediately you see the guys from UCB backing off, saying we can't mess with the shrine and we can't mess with the reinitiation.
Yeah, that was actually not that good here for Dire side. Like, it looked like it could be pretty decent. The Nyx moves in and grabs himself a kill. But the gold changing hands was about even, except the fact that the Ursa got most of the gold on Radiant's side. The Zeus got the gold on the Dire side, but not the experience. Moreover, the Spectre could be spending this time farming, or could have spent that time farming, but instead haunted in. Now you don't have Haunt either. You don't have Haunt for a while. You don't have Thunder God's Wrath for a while. You don't have Vendetta to pair up with those. And you didn't really get a lot for that exchange.
No, definitely not. So not worth it. A little bit perhaps of a greedy Nyx, but can you blame him? If you're a Nyx and the rest of the team was on the high ground, you see a Crystal Maiden wandering around a river, the impulse to kill has to be extravagant, extreme.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that the Ursa did end up going for the plus 25 damage. I was really curious about how he would go there. Obviously, plus 25 damage, much better at chewing through heroes very quickly, especially if you want to be able to do that before the Radiance comes out on the Spectre. That's when things get a little harder with the Mischance, right? but at the same time, the plus 10% magic resistance, if you're planning on going late game against the Zeus and the Kira, that could actually be a substantial increase to survivability.
I guess that tells me that his plan is to build a BKB and just erase both of them from the board before they have a chance to use anything.
Or they just wanted to, as soon as that Bloodstone comes out on the Storm Spirit, which it is out, they just wanted to go down. Presumably that's what we're going to be seeing. Lucky actually blinks in, presumably he's thinking about baiting a little bit here. His teammates are holding behind, and he showed that he already utilized his blink.
Absolutely, and I think UC Davis has really hit on something here. If you want to beat UCB, you don't allow them to play their game. You make them play yours. And UC Davis seems to be playing aggressive. They've got that Storm Spirit, they've got the Blink Dagger. They're making British Columbia respond to their pushes and their ganks and their attempts at winning the game instead of going the way around. And when UCB is allowed to dictate the pace, they're 100 times better.
Yeah, and also just look at the fact that the Spectre has not had any space to farm. Top lane, Ricky is solo farming. Bottom lane, Storm Spirit is solo farming. The Spectre is being forced to float around hard camps with an Alpha Wolf just to try and make something happen. And he's looking moved on to the Dark Seer, just trying to bait out some TV support. TV will be canceled. That was actually pretty smart, as it does allow the Nyx Assassin to move around this board side and kill instead of moving all the way to the top to defend a hero that probably wasn't.
Absolutely. So he got away. They didn't use the vacuum wall, but maybe perhaps as a distraction while they tried to accomplish other goals. Maybe down here on the bottom lane, it looks like we do have Eugene pushing Flame out. In the meantime, secret goal going for that Roche. So a nice slip in by the Ursa there.
Right, you throw down the vacuum wall, you force potentially a TP reaction, and then the TP cancel, and it's all smoke screen for the Roche now.
Lots of quality smoke screens, and that's probably why they picked the Ricky in the first place. They love that sort of thing. So let's go to the middle where Biology and Chocobo are going to start to put a little bit of push forward onto this tower, though it seems like they're relatively unconcerned with forcing a push right now.
They're absolutely going to dive this. If anybody shows Jellybean Bob thinking about trying to engage, of course that.
You're going to see the play from Big Bun. He's going to hide in the trees and try to use that chain lightning to keep them off the tower. But they can't, like you said, show themselves or initiation. Around the back, we're going to see Biology. The scout loves to do so very much, but they have a sentry ward down. It doesn't matter how it wants to go. Huge ice pack to go to save the day. Keeps him out He's there in the trees. Chocobo putting out some damage, but the range wasn't right necessarily. Lost the Rick. Now he's moving forward. They get a second pick off here. They're going down. The BG is very low, as is Hope. The run is on. Hope out the bottom and BG out the side. BG gets away. Chocobo goes down. It's a 3 for the price of 1 exchange. You said they'd dive. Davis knew they'd dive, and it didn't.
Yeah, the way that they ended up playing that worked out really well. They also could clearly see that the dive was coming.
Yeah.
I do like that they unloaded the macro fire to force the creeps off and force the dive to come spill around the edges. Right. Because when that dive spills around the edges, it creates less of a choke point. And that choke point would have been really bad for them in that case. They didn't have the tree protector in position. They didn't have the Spectre in position in order to move out on that. So forcing them around into a more open spillway allowed them to move around that.
Trying to go forward, but they get caught in a counter play here. He jumps right into it. Ricky, BG, thinking they could get a kill, but end up giving some lives. He didn't have a lot of mana. He's got to be careful here. He managed to pick off the Zeus. The fight is still on. BG locked in place. Zips away at the last second. A good double stun coming from Bob. Bob trying to get the high ground. Running from the Ion. Lucky 5-7 tries to put up the stacks. Can they finish the job? He goes down. The Aegis pop, but now it's a back wall, baby, as everybody tries to back off of this one. The fight is on. Both teams heavily committed. BG back into the fight. Ursa, a little bit out of position, goes for the stop. Lane misses it as Chu goes into the trees. Going to walk into Cow. Cow's going to be a nice surprise for the Bear. Bear wants to pick him off. Ends up finishing the job on the tree end. Can they finish the job now on Jellybean Bob and Co? Co and Jellybean both in trouble. Both go down. Thor picked off. And the boys from UC Davis get vengeance from their earlier mistakes.
Yeah, if they aren't going to have the haunt up, they can't be defending towers like that. They clearly knew the first time around a dive is coming.
Yeah.
So this time around, they should have known a dive is coming. Maybe at this time point around, they thought like, oh, we took the Aegis out when we were being aggressive, and so maybe the Ursa's thinking about backing off. But, you know, you dive that 100% of the time if you have a Storm Spirit. Storm Spirit's going to be able to get away, especially a Storm Spirit now with 18 Bloodstone charges. Although, one thing I will say is I had mentioned casually some Force Staffs are up and have been out for a little while. These Force Staffs are making it very difficult for Ursa, who's an extremely kiteable hero.
Definitely. So the Force Staff's very strong. Ursa having a hard game at the moment, but 15-12. There is a pretty sizable gold advantage going towards the Radiant. Davis still in pretty strong control of that right now. If you're sitting in the defending champs chairs, if you're University of British Columbia, what's your perspective on the game at this point?
You just want to open up as much space as you can for the Spectre and be very choosy about your engagement. Send the Nyx Assassin, who has a very low net worth out, to try and give you engagement. In worst case scenario, he feeds and he's not worth it.
So there's Zeus. Nice pick. So Darkseer goes down on the bottom lane. Not just vision, but lots of pick. And they get an important kill coming off of the back of sort of the four-man sacrifice.
Well, and that was also exactly what I just said, right? You have the Nyx Assassin go out and scout for potential kills. That is going to be the play that opens up opportunities. The Spectre then came in and fortunately didn't have to blow the haunt in order to get that one-man kill, which means that they can do the end in 2 seconds.
Absolutely. So Biology able to do a lot of scouting around, and surprisingly underspent amount of sentry wards that I expected in this match so far.
Yeah, part of the reason for that is we haven't seen a lot of objectives, right? Other than after team fights. And it's really difficult to drop sentries someplace relevant if you're not sitting and farming a lane and if you're not pushing objectives. Really, those forced engagements are where you're going to be willing to drop your goal.
Well, I do like University of British Columbia actually go to the top and they're making a move here as UCD jumps on top of the hero. Big play by BG, and that's what you get with a Storm Spirit, right? These sort of, the second you leave your support alone, it's like feeding him to the monsters.
And that makes a much bigger impact than almost any other support death.
Yep.
Normally a support dies, you're like, oh, whatever, he's not worth anything. He's invaluable in his impact for creating opportunity, but he's unvaluable in terms of his kill potential or death punishment. But when you're giving a Storm Spear in extra bloodstone charge, you have to take out really quickly in non-monetary ways.
Absolutely. So they need to pick those up. Meanwhile, they go ahead and pop the Zeus to find Biology, and they do it. Can they finish him before he disappears again? Unfortunately, not quite. He gets away with about 100.
They're going to hunt for it, and there is... Okay, well, they know where it is, and there is a Radiant. I don't think you can There's a good try to turn it into a trade, but without a blink dagger, which is the Radiant's pretty good shot. It did cost a hunt for a 4-spot Ricky, though. That's pretty good.
That's a very good force something to reconsider. And then meanwhile, on bottom, we see Lucky 5-7 able to pick off the Tree and Protector who was pushing.
So it's an exchange, and it costs a hunt, which is pretty costly. It also revealed that Radiance, I think that's the first engagement where that Radiance was available. So everybody in the game now knows that that's up. That's pretty key, because there's not going to be a BKB for a long, long time in the Cersei. He's going to go into Diffusal, and then maybe Abyssal, and then BKB.
You mean MKB?
Either way.
Well, he's got a BKB in his inventory.
Does he? No, he doesn't. Oh, he does. It's in his backpack. Yeah.
So that said, though, it's going to be a pretty interesting engagement as they go ahead and rotate now to see if they can push out a lane or find something interesting to do here. Meanwhile, let's look at the farm as you're going to see Chew up there on the top, and he is being hunted.
Yeah. This is actually a really good call because now that we realize he's sitting on top of that Radiance is much less impactful and needed to come out before that item.
Absolutely. So Radiant's still a good pickup. Is that about what you expect in terms of timing for Radiance from Spectre, or is it a bit slow for this?
It's slow. It's slow for Spectre, that was pretty close, especially for the laning phase. That lane was just so difficult with the Ion Shell and Ricky especially. They didn't have the vision in order to force Ricky back. They didn't have the range in order to force Darkseer back.
Right.
You would expect that to come out maybe 18 or 19 minutes, even if you're having kind of a rough game on the Spectre, but there just wasn't the support there for him. It's not necessarily that he laned poorly, it was a really, really tough lane. Here we go, Storm Spear.
Makes a big jump, looking for support. But nice go for it. He finds, he ends up getting himself the Zeus. Zeus on the run. Tries for the rescue. Can't get it from below, but Zeus has the scepter now. Turns back around. Puts some damage on BG, but BG is able to jump and come out of Ice Path. Meanwhile, the chase is on. Here comes Chew. He wants to play, but backwards. He's still trying to chase him. He's separated in twos. And Chew's got to be careful here. Chocobo comes in, gets the root, pops the ultimate, melts down, but leaves Chew low. Chew can't continue to chase. And they will lose the Ricky and the Crystal Maiden, and nobody on the other side from the Dire will work out. Another narrow miss on the Ice Path. Wait a minute, here comes BG. BG, are you with me?
Wow.
I guess maybe a little too much.
That was a little too aggressive from him. His team just traded out quite a bit of advantage in order to make sure that he wasn't going to lose Bloodstone charges, and he ended up going back in with not enough mana.
I think that his team is going to change for BG to be in the wrong place at that particular moment, because that was bold but not quite strong enough. So the guys from University of British Columbia are pretty happy about that situation because he gets them right back on track.
Yeah, no, they are by all means well on pace to be able to take the break at least competitively. Obviously, the Spectre being behind isn't great, but the farm is accelerating now that you have the Radiance. So with the Radiance farm, you're probably looking at Manta coming out here pretty soon. Diffusal also coming out here pretty soon. Maybe both of those items within the next 6 minutes, as long as he doesn't die a whole lot. Yeah. They do need to be careful to make sure that they are keeping an eye on Roche, because that could happen at any time into an Ursa lineup. But other than that, they're in a good enough position to at least be competitive on that.
Absolutely. So we wait for them to switch things up. Not a big surprise from UCD. This fits their style of play. They like these team fights. They're going to sort of lean forward onto a tower as a group, send out their team for scouting. Biology has to be careful though, because A, you get too close to you. There they are. They make a jump. 5-7. Good ice path, not enough. Down goes Spectre. They lost the Ricky. Closing the deal. Gets a huge grab by BG there. But he's inside of the ultimate. So much damage. Jelly Bean dropping low. He pops the fight. They're not going to be enough. He goes down as well, and it's 4 men for the price of a support. And look at this Big Bun. They're not done. They want to make it a 5-man wipe. Can they? Big Bun with the kite around the shrine and the prayer of hope, but it's not. It's a team wipe, baby, as the boys from UCD come forward and show University of British Columbia that they came to play.
Now that comes down to hope. Absolutely making that fight possible. This guy, he reset the fight. That Ursa got kited just all day long by those 4 steps, and he pulled everyone back. After the 4 steps had been used, there was no escape potential from that point forward for the entire squad, and Ursa just started to chew them down from the back lines, and then the surge in order to move into the base, into the shrine, past the tier 3s to knock that Zeus down. Hope, if this game starts to tilt from that moment, you've got to give him player of the game just from that play.
Absolutely. Phenomenal play. Good job. And like you said, lots of 4 stats for kiting, but he completely negated that by playing it at the right time in the right place. BG runs really good. Bob good. Chu does come in and finish that off.
That was a really nice play. And once again, we sent this to Nix, who's a very low risk, high reward sort of ganker at this juncture in the game. They did spend the haunt, but
well worth it.
Yeah, well worth it to get the Storm Spirit. And by the way, Storm Spirit now down to only 9 Bloodstone charges. This is a game that has swung very heavily out of his favor in terms of his ability to make impact.
He was very strong on the network chart. He's still number 2 on the stack, but he's been following rapidly. You see Spectre just closing that distance when he was way behind, and that's something that they need to happen. That's almost really, when you talk about British Columbia's draft, it's what they depended on, the Spectre eventually becoming unstoppable.
Yeah, when you're looking at his net worth, it's not really representative. He's really below the Spectre and the Zeus, because you've got 25% of that Bloodstone cost is no longer valid, right? He's below the starting charges, so it's even much less than they otherwise would. At least 20% of its value has been negated.
The Ice Pass going to come in and scout what was going on down there, so they know that Lucky 5-7 was trying to get a little bit sneaky, but no Ninja Roche for him.
Yeah, this is a really nice thing. Just make sure you got something in the pit. Keep an eye on, because you do not have any margin there.
Whoa, nice pickoff by Big Bun Fury there. And he just goes ahead and takes the Ricky, and that's the problem with the Zeus. Sometimes Zeus is just farming lane and Ricky's in the wrong spot.
Yeah, the big problem that you're going to start running into here is that Ursa got off to an extremely strong start, but does not go late as hard as the Spectre, especially because this team is really, really well itemized for the Ursa. 1, 2, 3, 4 staffs now, and the Spectre has both Spectral Dagger and Phase Boost, so, and a Yasha. You're going to get kited by that guy as well.
So, and they were a little bit fortunate in the Surge one where we talked about Hope after the 4 stats were used, in that the 4 stats were sort of used in a weird square pattern, right? That put them all back together for an easy back.
Well, they all had to go up the ramp. That was just a really bad place for a team fight for them, unless they were able to force staff through the impassable terrain into their base, which would have been a pretty excellent play from any of those 4 staff holders, but it's definitely something that's difficult for them
so
to manage.
they can't count on that vacuum save every time. So as we go into this game, I mean, the game is very strongly in Davis's advantage. A 10,000 goal lead. Is it going to take a lot to swing it the other way?
Well, we do have a new item out. It will make it so that it's assassins. So that
Hold on a second. Jelly beans. Everybody knows pops the big. They know that Ricky was watching because they saw them make the hit. That will cost him his life. Worth it to keep that. If they had engaged in there, that could have been a lot closer.
Yeah, I don't think that Ricky necessarily needed to go up onto that hill and stay there as soon as he saw what was going on, but the escape potential wasn't great. Probably what should have happened is the Darkseer should have gone up because you do have to know. If our opponents are coming, they're coming under smoke, which means they're going to know Ricky's going to be nearby when he's down the hill. If you have a blink anchor, he's got a snowball's chance of on place to get away.
Absolutely. Ricky did not, but again, they don't really seem to care too much about his life. In fact, I was listening to UC Davis practice a little bit yesterday, and when their supports died, their cores would go, nothing of value was lost.
Yeah,
and I think they maybe took that a little bit too much to heart with it.
Well, the Crystal Maiden is going to be nothing of value lost here.
Make it a double as it looks like, yeah, she just gets beat down. So support's having a rough game, but
that Spectre is of much greater value.
Yeah, absolutely. So a good pickoff, and again, a little bit of misdirection coming out of Davis. They offer up the Crystal Maiden for sacrifice to buy the space to do what they want to do.
Yeah, meanwhile, though, Ursa's just going to be able to chew through whatever he needs to in order to grab this advantage. And I don't necessarily know that there's anything that can be done here. Spectre down.
And they know that the speed of rotation isn't with them. At worst, push it through and get some fun. That's that. There's no way to find it.
Will be claimed here, and that is a breath of fresh air for them. They do have a little more leeway to dive, which they absolutely need in this case. And moreover, we still haven't really seen the full power of that enrage with the current itemization for Ursa. In these next fights, he's going to be a little less kiteable and a little less targetable, but they need to open up some kill opportunities for the Storm Spirit to get some Bloodstone charges back up.
Yeah, so let me, as we have a little bit of a lull here, let's talk about KCY and this Treant Protector.
Sure.
Have they had the impact with this Treant that they were hoping to have? And if not, why?
Part of it is that the lane was just not a harassable hero, right? Treant Protector provides a lot of potential damage. The damage output from Leech Team is actually really good. And then on top of that, you would normally expect a Treant Protector team to have more map control because you can't chip down towers. The draft around that Treant Protector was actually really well done, right? The Ursa doesn't chip down towers. He takes towers from full health to no health very, very quickly. And none of the other heroes really even care about towers for the Radiant side. So you're moving in and getting towers slowly, but you're getting them consistently. Right. And that's something that a lot of team compositions have difficulty with into a Treant Protector. So because the lane didn't go super well, the team fights for the Darkseer and the tower control isn't really being upheld by the Treant Protector. I think that you're not getting the value out of him that you really expected.
It does seem that we haven't seen a huge root that sort of change the game, so KCY having a hard time really making this plays. But again, they're exactly what we talk about. BG will clear the creep wave, Lucky will come forward and clear the tower, and there's just nothing that they can do to stop it, nor anything they can do to heal it. In fact, Treant didn't even bother putting a heal on the tower.
Yeah, why would you? It's going to add an extra. In fact, it was on cooldown. So.
All right, so now they go back in. They're going to farm their opponent's jungle, which is usually a pretty good sign that you need to turn something around when your opponents are taking away the precious little farm that you have. Let's talk about farm Spectre. What he's sitting on right now, is it enough?
Yeah, you're looking for a Manta style right now. That will help tremendously dealing with the Ursa and the kite ability. It will also help tremendously with the Storm Spirit being able to move in and target onto that Spectre. But really, ultimately, this period of the game is all about waiting. For Dire, they don't have an advantage. They have a net worth advantage, and they have a better late game.
Right.
So as long as they don't make any big mistakes, they can force their opponents into uncomfortable positions. Whether or not they'll capitalize on that will come down to player execution, but they're doing the right move here. It looks like they're doing nothing, but they're actually being very talented.
Yeah. Now, UC Davis on the back of BG with those ganks has been incredibly effective. Add to that the fact that BG has just completed and picked up his Bloodthorn. So the next time he goes for a gank, it should be faster, cleaner, and even versatile.
And that's another reason why you absolutely need this Manta style as fast as possible. Bloodthorn doesn't do anything to dispel it. And
he's getting close, but he has a way not close enough. So what's the play? Wait for the Aegis to almost be running out? Do you just sort of push lane and go all the way in to try and take the high? How does Davis close this out?
I think they have to push gently on every lane right now. And right now, I think they're doing the right thing in hoping that their opponents get a little overconfident out of their base and they get picked off.
Gotcha.
But it's just not happening. At a certain point, they are going to have to realize that this is a tactical play and they will have to dive a tower in order to get some kills. Even if they can force out the haunt in an engagement, maybe trade off the Crystal Maiden for a haunt or something like that, that would give them the opportunity to then move in. They also were waiting for a big item that has just come out.
Okay.
So now the Ursa's able to save his BKB charge. He doesn't have to blow it just to be able to hit stuff. So he can save his BKB for dealing with the actual magical stuns and damage that comes in from the Zeus, which is good.
Well, the MKB, they don't have to deal with the Radiance mischance anymore, so very nice.
Yeah. Before he was using the BKB in order to offset the Radiance mischance, but then he couldn't use it tactically. Now we can do both.
The other problem, though, is are they on a timer? So if they don't win this fight, is UBC potentially able to come back and try and push them out because the Spectre getting so much on the face?
Yeah, either team.
Hold on a second. Here comes the jump. It goes straight to the Spectre. He's too far forward. Double BKB pop. The Force Staff is trying to get saved, but it's not going to happen. He goes down. Easy Spectre pick, and they're going to push in, start to hit the towers. BKB is running all around. Spectre not going to buy back. Everybody's still going to take these ones. So they're standing close to a macro fire. Buyback from Spectre. He's going to come in on this one. 1, 2, 3. The Aegis is going to come back up. Lucky 5-7 goes down the zip away from the Storm Spirit to get the heck out of dodge. But that is 3, and it seemed almost like British Columbia wanted them to go for that Spectre.
I think the Ursa's Aegis expired in that fight, didn't it?
I think he came back up. No, the Aegis was on top of the Storm Spirit.
Oh, yeah, it's on the Storm. Okay, I was going to say.
So
like,
they got the Aegis out, they forced the Storm Spirit back, and now they get to push down the mid lane. They had Spectre out there, run buyback on the Ursa. This is a huge moment for University of British Columbia, and it all came off of what felt like they were baiting them to hit the high ground and go after Spectre.
Yeah, well, I don't think they were baiting him to go after Spectre, but they were hoping that they would do that, right? Like, it was a really good move on Spectre. The problem was they needed just the Storm Spirit to go in, I think, and force the Spectre buyback. If the Storm Spirit went in alone with the Aegis and the ability to immediately remove himself from that fight, you force that Spectre buyback, you win the game in the next 6 minutes, probably.
So the Spectre got gone on. They moved 2 heroes in. They burnt a lot to get him down.
And then the Ursa ran into the base with the Storm, and that was the problem. He was unable to get himself out of the fight, unlike the Storm Spirit, and that makes the buyback from the Spectre, instead of being a waste, being quite valuable.
Now, the thing that makes me wonder how planned it was the fact that UBC, I don't know if you noticed this, chain used the Force Staffs. There was no accidental double trigger on those things. They moved the Spectre very effectively, literally from here in front of the tower, almost all the way down to here before they could purposely get engaged again by the Ursa who was chasing him.
I think they were just trying to get him away. They were caught off guard. I think they actually only used 1, and then it was a phase boots. It might have been 2, but also remember the Spectre died to the Orchid. The Spectre didn't die physical damage. It was just that he had taken so much damage while silence that the post, or not working, the post Bloodthorn burst damage that comes out was just going to kill him either way. So they were trying to get him out. They couldn't. I will say, though, that he didn't activate Shrine that he could have.
That's true.
There. So either that was a little misplay, or he realized he was going to die anyway. This is probably what it was.
Yeah.
He realized he was going to die anyway, and he was just trying to buy back the big too far into the base.
Which they did. The rest of the team saw the death of the Spectre as a good chance to go high ground. It did not work out. But again, you can't fault Davis for that because they're up against a hero like Spectre who's got such great late game potential and has been slowly but surely, as we saw, becoming stronger and stronger in this match.
Yeah, Davis are consistently finding themselves in a position where they're over-engaging because they feel the pressure. Once again, it really is going to have to come down to the Storm Spirit. It has to be the one to force those buybacks, has to be the one to force those rotations. He's the only one that's going to be able to get away once he engages.
And that's the key. Who can get away? And the question, and here's my other question, is how much longer can he get away? Are we going to see some items coming out relatively soon from University of British Columbia that can finally control that Storm Spirit?
Well, he's got a BKB, and he only needs to pop the BKB and charge out. So I don't know that it's likely that any items that they're going to pick up are going to make the Storm Spirit extremely vulnerable. Eventually, maybe an Abyssal Blade, but I don't even see who would carry it, to be honest. So you're probably just looking at more sustained fight potential coming out of the Dire squad, right? You're probably looking at some health and regen on the Spectre. You're looking at maybe an Ags onto the Nyx Assassin in order to make these fights last as long as possible. What they really want is the fight to last long so that their opponents are forced deeper into their territory, because those are the fights that they win.
Absolutely. All right, so both teams going to fall back. It's some safe farming coming out from University of British Columbia. A little bit more dangerous in terms of the farming, but not necessarily because they control most of the map right now from the Radiant side. Vision-wise on the map, Radiant doing a good job of managing the cross of the river, whereas Dire has absolutely nothing to speak of except for one here on the bottom.
Well, it's because there's a gem on the Storm
Right.
Spirit. He's been just going around. He's got that flying vision plus the ability to move over impassable terrain. There's no ward that they can put up that would let them have vision. But it doesn't really matter. They don't need to hang right outside of the base. So far, the Spectre is not going to come up Earth, but in terms of impact, definitely.
They try to go for Ursa, and after pop the BKB, they all run away, but got the BKB out.
That was actually a really good play. Moving out is really risky. Beforehand, I was a little concerned about it, but the fact that they forced out a BKB, they forced out the 8-second BKB, which other than the 10-second charge, 8 seconds is arguably the most important. At that point in time, basically any time an engagement starts, all you got to do is 2 4 staffs and you waste the entire
Absolutely. And to touch on that, you talked about Storm Spirit's 5-second BKB and how it doesn't really matter that it's down to 5. Ursa's the opposite of that. The shorter the BKB gets, the more dangerous it is.
Yeah, and the fact that he's already being kited into these fights with the 8-9-second BKB, this is a pick.
This is Chocobo by himself. Figured he had some visibility, figuring it out, but behind Dimmit, he's going to give them the vision they need to finish that off.
God, Jellybean Bob, so sly there. Just waits, doesn't do damage, doesn't take the kill. He was waiting in case anybody came to try and save Chocobo, and then he was going to jump on them and turn it into the double. If he revealed there's no chance of that. So there was nobody in the area. I think that it was reasonable of him to think somebody would be in the area too.
Biology scouts out the Spectre. Ursa comes in to try and help out, but it's not going to work. He's trying to get himself out. He's here now. We see the death of the Ricky. The chase down. The BKB is running. Dodges the stun because of it, but will it be enough? He's able to blink, and he gets himself out of trouble. But that's 2 supports down, and a big signal to University of British Columbia that they've taken a bit of an advantage in this series. No, they're going to find him. They got him in the trees. He's done. That's a huge pickoff.
Yeah. So at this point in time, you're starting to think, boy, our Ursa isn't able to dive towers anymore. Our Ursa isn't able to farm alone anymore. We, despite the fact that we're not really controlling the pace of how people are actually.
You can hear the calls coming out from UBC saying if he buys back, like here's what our play is going to be. And this is something where he's not going to be able to really do it. So this is going to be a huge challenge for the guys from UC Davis, I think, in sort of keeping pace. They were the pace controllers, and now they're sort of just having to respond to what UBC throws at.
You see British Columbia, too, being very smart with their control groups to just keep moving around the map even if they don't have a board up. And they did just scout out the big boy, so they know it's available, and they are just making sure that they are in a position to, at the very least, contest that. Because once again, Ursha just takes it so fast. You absolutely want to make sure that you have a sense of control. If they were to get that, if they could get that safely, so maybe one more good fight and then you're off in there, I'm not sure that there's anything that can be done to preserve outer tier towers, let alone maybe on tier 3 where they're at.
And it does feel like the first team to sort of break that high ground. So both teams will try to accomplish that. But again, the longer you go, the more Chu farms, and the more Chu farms, the harder it becomes to win.
Yeah, so the Abyssal Blade will eventually come out onto the Spectre. It looked like he was going for a heart first, I guess. And he seems to be transitioning that Vitality booster into an Abyssal Blade as well. I think that's the right call. When he was starting to get the heart, it looked like they were going to be defending the high ground for a really long time. And in a way where he was getting bursted. But now they aren't really under as much pressure. The damage, just because of stat gain and the Vitality booster alone, hasn't been that overwhelming.
All right, so ping coming out across the map. Both teams suspect that it is going to be a very important approach when it does happen. Want to make sure their vision is up in the right spot.
The catapult there, so everybody knows what's going on. There's nobody in this game who's unaware. And because of what happened last time, you can already
not going to be enough. Huge back
Wow.
to the wall. Catches the tree, hits this low. Jakiro's got to go. And now they want Billy Bean Bob. He's trying to buy a little bit of space, goes underground, gets a nice stun, and BG takes the brunt of it. Billy Bean on the run. We've got Run Fury getting caught by the Ursa. Moves on him, 3 on each side. The fights broke out into different directions, and both teams lose 3.
Yeah, both teams lose basically equivalently. The Zeus going down hurts a little more for Thur, but this is not going to be an objective losing loss. And if they are able to grab that, oh no.
He sees him.
He just didn't see it in time. He just didn't see it in time.
That would have been huge.
Yeah. The gem was dropped though. Who dropped the gem? Nyx didn't die. He's got the gem to Dire. So did Stormspear just empty it? Yeah, Stormspear just dropped the gem in the middle of the map in order to open up some inventory space. And take a look at that nice little sneaky stick coming out there. That will be very, very helpful into the Zeus. You can basically just kill him during that duration. You might not always be able to target the Spectre with it, which would be ideal, because the map makes it a little more difficult to figure out which one is real and to be able to get in deep enough to target that. But if you get either of those heroes in that and there's a fight that breaks out around it, you're fighting 4 and 5, but for the rest of the fight, like somebody dies.
Absolutely. So both teams after 3-on-3 engagement. And again, what we'll see immediately is both teams will return their looks. Control over the pit. Dyerson will go ahead and use the Zeus ultimate to make sure that no one's in there and get the information they need. They saw Radiant grouping up around the Roche pit and use the ultimate, and it's going to force them backwards by a little bit of time, I think, for the guys from British Columbia to regroup, reset, and get ready for defense.
Yeah. This is a really nice play here, just moving in. Once again, every time the momentum swings even a little bit in their favor, these guys really know how to take it. This is going to be with a little line of use level as well, so there's nothing that can be done with that. So, I don't
know. Very, very sneaky. They slip in, they get the Roche. They thought that, I think Dire thought perhaps the Zeus ultimate would scare them off enough to buy some space. It did not. And they were grouped up on bottom, which gave them a very easy grab. Now, how big is the speed?
It's huge, because now the Storm Spirit, once again, is able to be the person who creates all the opportunities. If they play it right, if they play it like they did last time, will they allow it to basically as well? They can lose game because they have to, right? But if they allow the Storm Spirit to be the pace setter in this game, and the Ursa doesn't dive too far to assist him until he knows that the team fight is going favorably, if that's the play, then they can probably break high ground.
Well, and it's worth noting, with the Storm Spirit, if he opens with Bloodthorn and Hexstick right out of the gate, as long as he lasts for about 15 to 20 seconds in the fight, when he comes back up with the Aegis, both are available.
Yeah. And presumably, they will have already killed somebody, right? He's gonna Hex and Bloodthorn.
And New.
Right, and the Ursa's going to jump in on down the extra side. The big problem only exists when the Ursa then jumps in, kills somebody, and then charges into the fight, regardless of whether or not his opponent might have buyback. That is a little bit too bold.
So we're back to where UBC found themselves earlier on the high ground defense. They have a lot more farm this time. They have Siege Tower, Bob here is just running around with that Egg Scepter.
Yeah, the Ags is a really I don't think it's much better defensive than it is offensive. Unfortunately, though, the Storm Spirit does, the Ridley does have a gem, right? So if he is this far forward, which he kind of has to be in this position, he will be visible at the very least.
So the bottom tower is getting a lot of damage from that huge creep wave. Hope I had to go back, and they still lost half their health on it. Meanwhile, a little push down the mid from the guys from the UBC.
Is this going to be a smoke? Does anybody have an inventory? No, they don't have any. So they're just coming out and trying to assert some control over the map. We're pressed into minutes, and neither team seems to be itching to force an engagement.
Right.
Presumably, it has to be Radiant. Like UCD, it's their job right now in the game state to force the next engagement, and UBC are happy to let them take that road.
They have a 20,000 overlap, so that's something that you can't if you're UBC.
Okay, well, the engagement will be forced in that the Zeus is farming alone. That's and there's going to be the big baby coming out. CM is forced to back out of her ultimate, trying to get away. A big bunt there. He is going to go down. No, he just narrowly ends up going down. The Hex is going to go down onto the tree. Protecting Lewis Invisible, trying to move on to Biology. It's going to attack down Biology. Trying to take gets gem. Biology is going to go down. The gem is on the ground. Meanwhile, the Nyx Assassin forcing away the Stormtrooper, who has no mana left. Does have Aegis, if they do manage to get the kill. They are calling out, trying to get him, but he is stunned from his own damage thanks to the Nyx Assassin. The Aegis is going to be clean. He should be able to get away, but on the mean side,
Darkseer is picked. Chocobo goes down as he runs. That was a really, we literally just talked about UBC can't take the fight to them, but essentially Davis took the fight to UBC and then got smashed from the back.
Yeah, and they also, the one real game that you could have seen with the way the Radiant, or excuse me, the one real game that should have been is that the gem dropped and Dyer should have been able to pick up the gem, which is still sitting on the ground.
So,
but the fact that they were not able to extradite out the Darkseer, they weren't able to get out the Storm Spirit without the Aegis as well. That Nyx Assassin basically opened up that entire field, right? He took all the mana from the Storm Spirit, he threw out enough stuns to delay the Storm Spirit for the rest of his team to show up, and he was able to force the Ursa to route around the other side.
Now, I would want to ask you real quick, since we have a little bit of a downtime here. A lot of our fans may not watch a ton of Nyx Assassin, especially if we've got some folks who are experiencing Dota for the first time in the Collegiate League. What is it about the Ag Scepter that makes him so effective in stopping pushes?
So he is able to basically spread damage much faster and much farther. His stun goes twice as far. His range for the mana burn, I think, is also twice as far. And he's able to sit invisible underground stationary on a permanent level. Now, that doesn't make a big difference when your opponents do have a gem, so they'll be able to catch you anyway. But what the big deal is that he is able to both harass out heroes and to knock down creeps from well outside of his base while his right.
They're going to make a move on Biology, gets a nice ball. Down it goes. Ricky with very little chance. Ricky wants to play though. Wants to keep it live. Can they finish the job? They've launched the Bobo. The moon is up. They're turning it back around. Either team walking away. Huge vacuum. Catches the Ursa. Ursa goes down. The chase is on. They want hope. They want BG on the run. Can he get away? He's out of mana. He goes down. The Radiance is too strong. Chu stops the chase. They say stay on the tower, get the picks, and they do. The guys from British Columbia make a wonderful engagement and sucker PG into a 5-man stomp.
Yeah, that's very likely dangerous too. You do have the buyback that are both going to have here, and instantly out.
So last chance, BG wants to make a play. UBC pushing to the high ground, trying to finish this off. They get the stun. This could be it, baby. The buyback immediately. UBC wants to close it out. They got the double buy. This time Davis is going to take a little bit slower in how they respond. And while they're at the tower in the rags, the GG does come out. Davis says, we can't fight it. We let the Spectre go too far. And that is all she wrote. Boys and girls, phenomenally well played by UBC Esports here. As they came to play, the defending champions showed us just why they were the winners last year and are the favorites to take it home this year. Gorgon, do you have a player of the game that you would say, band player of the game, this guy made the difference?
You know, I think basically what we're looking at here is, are you going to give the band player of the game to the player that created the most opportunity or the player who best capitalized on it? And ultimately, I think Jellybean Bob on the Nyx Assassin created the most opportunity in the most vital portions of the game. And now, the entire team contributed in a really, really big way. The ability for the Spectre to be patient and wait for his opportunity in order to move out. A lot of carries would have just charged off the high ground. A lot of supports, for that matter, would have charged off the high ground to try and find farm throughout that very slow late mid-game and early late game. But these guys had the discipline as a squad to hold together, and that opened up the opportunity for Jellybean Bob to find those perfect moments to turn every single bloody fight.
Absolutely. It came down to some really good picks and some really good plays by them. Very impressed with UBC's patience, as you brought up, their ability to stick in the zone and just wait for the right moments, which, honestly, watching the last game, Davis maybe could have benefited from a little bit of that patience.
Yeah, well, a big problem for them, I think, was ultimately that they didn't have the luxury of patience. They didn't have the Spectre. So they were aggressive, but they had to be aggressive.
Right.
The big problem, I think, was that they didn't. Their eyes for distance weren't quite there. The Ursa was consistently finding himself just a little too deep, trying to chase that last little inch of a kill instead of saying, okay, he got away, but I'm going to get away too. We already got 1 or 2 picks, and we're just going to take map advantage and then be aggressive again.
Absolutely.
There's a limit to what you can do.
Absolutely. Well, guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be back with Game 2 of UC Davis versus University of British Columbia, the defending champs versus the wild cards. If they advance, if UBC wins this next match, they go to the grand finals up against UConn. Davis, hoping that's not the way it goes. They've got a few things to say about it, and we're going to see exactly what they have to say about it when we get back. My name's Toppies. This is Gorgon. You are watching the CSL. Be back with Game 2 in just a few minutes.
From the weird to the insane.
Test, 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 test.
Welcome to the CSL Grand Finals in beautiful downtown Toronto. This is the semifinal matchup between UBC Esports and the UC Davis Aggies. My name's Toffies, this is Gorgon the Wonder Cow, and you are in the right place for the best college Dota in North America. Now, we're pretty excited about what we're going to be bringing you in the second match. Before I do that, though, I do want to let you know that if you are in the Toronto area, you should probably come down here ASAP. I know that Asus is here with Staples, and they're giving away a $200 discount for buying a new gaming laptop. So if it's something you're in the market for, I think maybe it's worth getting down here and watching some of these matches.
And I mentioned it before, but on these GL502s that we're on, like I'm running on max specs for Dota, and I'm getting not. It's
No problems
I've
whatsoever.
never seen some like it in my hands. So
Absolutely.
it's definitely worth it.
Since we've said, hey, great job to Asus, a big shout out to the rest of those who made this possible. Twitch.tv, the place you're watching, is also the #1 place to watch esports streamed. It's the #1 platform in the world. We wouldn't be what they are without them. And of course, Band Gaming, the ultimate social app for not only the CSL, but gaming in general. The best way to keep track of your team, clan, or whatever you're in, get them scheduled and get them online. Because the hardest part of having an esports team, Gorgon, is getting everybody together to play.
No, other than winning. No, the winning is also kind of hard, but
Maybe
being
for
together.
maybe for you, because I've seen your team, but for the rest of us, we know how to win. Now, talking about a team that knows how to win, let's talk about UBC Esports. These guys are defending champions. They go into a game against UC Davis that, let's be real, there was a period there where we thought Davis, I don't want to say had this in the bag, but they were awful close to taking this all the way home.
Yeah,
And UBC won.
They had an advantage, but it was a very difficult to capitalize advantage, and that's what ended up being the big problem for them. UBC drafted extremely well for high ground defense, and what they ended up doing, the patient play, is something that we don't see a lot of CSL teams willing or able to bring themselves to do.
Absolutely.
So the fact that they were able to just sit and do nothing for 5 minutes and just casually farm whatever happened to fall into their base, it actually applied a lot of pressure and a lot of psychological pressure on UC Davis Aggies.
Well, I think it's a very interesting thing. We talked about UBC early on. We talked about how they enjoy being in control of the game. And when we talk about CSL teams, most of the teams work with this sort of general strategy idea. They like to play their way.
Yeah.
And when they're not allowed to, they either try to get back into their style of play or they lose.
Yeah.
UBC didn't do that. They said, all right, we're going to let you dictate the pace, and we're going to play your game, but we're going to do it in a way that's patient enough that we can turn it back around and take control again. And I really respected that, because that's something we don't ever really get to see.
Yeah.
Now, talking about things we never really get to see, the Lifestealer banned out again in this match. We're going to see the Magnus, and now a bit of a respect ban there, as the Nyx Assassin not going to be allowed to return.
Yeah, Nyx Assassin was a huge problem for UBC, especially if they are thinking this game we're going to do a similar sort of strategy where we want to get off to a good early game start. It just, the Nyx Assassin, especially once you get up the Ags, is too much to handle in terms of any sort of magical or mana-dependent high-ground assaulter. You just can't deal with it.
So last time around, UBC did ban out the Axe. This time around, UC Davis can get their hands on it. UBC, though, gets themselves a Spectre and a Zeus.
Yeah, they're doing very similar strategy. Of course, the Nyx Assassin was the biggest single factor in that working last time. He was scouting for them. He was finding picks for them. He was chain stunning. He was draining the mana from the Storm Spirit, which maybe won't be as big of an issue if there's no Storm Spirit to come out here for UC Davis Aggies. But overall, they're going to need to make sure that they grab somebody who can do the scouting, somebody that can do the sacrificial plays, and somebody that can do the chain stunning. They're probably not going to get all of that in one hero anymore. So now maybe they're thinking about pulling out a Ricky and maybe a return for the Jakiro, or Ricky and a Vengeful Spirit or something. And sinking two heroes into that role that one hero had before is going to make this draft maybe a little more difficult for them to compose.
I do want to point out they also banned the Treant Protector, which tells me that UBC puts a very high value on this hero. In the last game, they picked him early, and we said KCY wasn't as effective as he would have liked to have been on that hero. This time they felt the same way, clearly. Instead of drafting him, they get rid of him in the first round. So that's a hero that UBC definitely thinks has a very strong presence in this game.
Yeah, Treant Protector, ever since he was added into Captain's Mode, has had a huge footprint into Pro Dota, and also since he was remade back in 7.00, I think, so about 4 or 5 months, 5 or 6 months ago now.
Is it that long ago?
It really is. It was in December. It was right after Boston. So there's been a lot of time for this Treant Protector to continue to be a force, and they have brought him back a little bit in terms of nerfing him out, but overall he still has a huge impact in coordinated play. He has less impact now in less coordinated pub play. Jakiro, I like this from the Aggies. They're denying the Jakiro. They know that UBC probably want to play a very similar strategy, and they know probably, I wouldn't be surprised if a Ricky Band does come out here as well.
Absolutely, and it's not like he doesn't synergize very well with the Axe. Jakiro and Axe heroes that work incredibly. I mean, you can say Dazzle Axe is like the quintessential combo, right? But Jakiro, not far off from that. The fact that he can follow up on the call and lock everyone in place, the fact that if he does that and times it correctly inside of a macro pyre, the damage is far from inconsequential. So that's a huge combo. It's going to work well in UC Davis's style of play, which these guys like to bring aggression. They like to initiate. I mean, you saw some of those blinks last time around.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous what Ursa was trying to accomplish.
I'm a little confused about the complete lack of Monkey King presence in these teams. The Monkey
That's
King
true.
also a similar basic role as the Ricky could work really well here with a Spectre. You get a huge haunt and the Monkey King throwing out all of his illusions, or I guess minions, or whatever they call them, into the Zeus ultimate. That is a tremendous amount of initiation and a tremendous amount of damage. It's also something that would work really well into the Axe, because Axe holds a hero still, but if Monkey King gets his ultimate off, Axe is going to have to hold still.
I would say, guys, you might not be aware if you're just tuning in. We've got a little thing going on here on our social media. It's called #AskZingle. Now, Zingle is a player who played last year. He's been working as a caster this year. He's like a 6.7K support, kind of knows his stuff. That said, if you want to question, like, why isn't Monkey King showing up in these drafts, or why can't I get a date, just go ahead and tweet it to #AskZingle at @CStarLeague, and we're going to put a segment together after each series that he can answer some of those questions for you guys. So definitely ask him why you can't get a date. He is pretty much an expert in those things. Juggernaut's going to get picked up here across from the Warlock. UBC thought about the Warlock last time, was denied the ability to use it. What do you think about that Warlock pickup for support here?
I think that is good. In general, it allows them to stack up a lot of their AoE potential, a lot of their engagement. They do have some trouble with that hero in that he potentially could be jumped on from, if he's sitting on the back lines, he's really vulnerable to dying before he manages to get his impact out. But overall, I think that there's a lot of potential synergy there with another AoE pick as well. And taking a look at the way that the Juggernaut ends up working, the Warlock does have that mini stun that comes out of Chaotic Offering that will go through Blade Fury. So now they have the ability to cancel out Blade Fury TP, right? So the Juggernaut will no longer be able to just TP out. And the Monkey King does come out, which I wanted to lean on, but I didn't want to lean too hard on. The Warlock synergizes really well with Monkey King. And this is pretty much exactly what we expected from UBC.
Absolutely. This is definitely UBC style of play. They like to bring that, and they like to bring the aggression. It's going to fit well. They love vision, as we saw in the last game with the incredible amount of invisibility heroes we have. So Monkey King going to fulfill that role that we saw KCY trying to do with the Tree and Protector last time around. And it seems to me almost like they picked that tree first, thinking that Monkey King would probably be taken off the board.
Yeah, Vengeful Spirit, a really obvious pick here in the Monkey King, because you can swap him out of the ultimate. You can swap the Warlock into a fight before he manages to get off the Chaotic Offering. And he does, or the Vengeful Spirit, she does also provide a decent amount of damage input for towers. So.
Absolutely. So it's pretty great early. The problem, the worry that I have right now is, yes, we have our swap with the Vengeful Spirit, but right now, there is a lot of potential for that Warlock Rock and potentially any other AoE initiations that UBC chooses to pick up, to putting in a lot of work against heroes like Axe and Juggernaut, who are going to want to be up close and personal in these fights.
Yeah, if the Lena's not banned out here, we're looking at maybe a Lena pick-off. Lena's got pretty good range, pretty good nuke, also applies pressure onto towers, and I know it is definitely a hero that has been banned out against him a lot as well. So for the Aggies, that might be what they're looking for. Something like that. They need to make sure that they're able to apply pressure on towers a little faster than they could last game. Last game,
Right.
they only had the Ursa to do it. And they were really punished for that draft decision when they found themselves without the discipline in order to force out team engagements. And that required a higher level of communication than I think this team has, because they don't have a centralized shot caller either. That gives them a lot more flexibility, but it punished them last game.
Absolutely. UBC bans out the Storm Spirit, not interested in seeing that aggressive play that we saw out of BG last time around. So they go ahead and get him off the board. And Sand King going to be banned by the Aggies. They know that they're looking to stop that sort of stun and AoE control.
Yeah. Shadow Shaman actually does provide quite a bit of push. It does mean that you're looking at maybe a mid Shadow Shaman is something we used to see quite a bit. I'm not 100% sure how they run this. We are moving into Monkey King with one offlaner left here, so a Centaur might actually be quite good here if and he is still in the pool.
He fits that initiation potential. He knows that they're going to be up close for these fights. It could be a very good pickup for them. UBC, a lot to consider. We know that they have a very large pool, and it's something that makes them a little more accessible than sort of the Aggies. And now, UC Davis did talk to us yesterday and told us they're going to be playing the heroes that they're good at. They have a lot of potential, but I do believe they also told us, and this is a quote, we can play any hero out there.
Yeah. And actually, an Abaddon might not be terrible here either for UBC. That would give them a lot of survivability. They're going to grab an off-lane Enigma. That is a lot of wombo combo. They're putting a lot of eggs in that basket.
That's a huge amount. That is a huge amount of wombo combo. They're putting a lot of eggs in this basket, and that's what we sort of talked about. The fear with this was the only thing that they have to pull them out of that is the swap right now. I mean, if Enigma gets a good jump, and you talk about the Spectre ultimate, the Zeus ultimate, the Warlock Rock, and the Monkey King, I mean, that's it. The problem is that too many eggs to put into one basket?
It could be. You could be looking at a very unhappy dairy section, right? So as you're looking at UC Davis too, it will help that UC Davis have a draft that wants to group up. So UC Davis has a draft that wants to group up but not engage, and UBC has a draft that wants to group up and one big engagement. Presumably, whichever team is able to draw the fight into their corner of those polar opposites will be the team that wins.
And speaking of the teams that wins, it looks like all the players picking their heroes as we get ready to go into this match. Guys, girls, if you're just joining us, this is the C Star League. You are watching the grand finals live on land in Toronto, and this is the semifinal matchup between these two juggernauts of teams. The first game was a sight to behold, back and forth, 50-plus minutes, no stomp, really just until the bitter end. We didn't know who was going to take it home.
Yeah, and honestly, that game could have gone another 12 minutes
Yep.
if it didn't look like it was likely to swing the way of the losers, but they could have dragged it out a little bit longer. So we're probably looking at a very close matchup again this time.
So it should be another good one, so don't go anywhere. We're going to have a chance to watch some really solid Dota here between these guys. Now, as we see what the Team Tower Showdown is,
Zeros all the way around.
I just don't think it works in custom lobbies.
It must be that. I think these guys all just have no battle pass levels.
I respect that. Who needs skins when you've got the skill level these guys are playing at? That said, the game is underway. Welcome, one and all. Let's do some introductions for these teams as we get a little bit of a pause to make it just that much easier.
Sure, I'm going to go ahead and bring us through the pause with a Radiant side introduction. Here on our team, we do have Zeus making an electric play with Old Big Bun Theory. Q is haunting on the Spectre. Jelly Bean Bob is going to be taking that Warlock out. KCY is creating some monkey business on the Monkey King, and Cow is the mystery of the Enigma.
And on the opposite side for UC Davis, we're going to have Lucky 5-7 playing the Vengeful Spirit, BG playing the Juggernaut, Hope bringing the Axe, Chocobo the Shadow Shaman, and Biology hoping to make this Jakiro work. Both teams look like they've got the draft that they want. Morgan, skill aside, past experiences aside, which draft do you feel strongly about?
The drafts really, all of the draft advantage comes down to which team executes better, right? Which team is able to force its opponents just slightly out of position. So for our Radiant side squad, it's all about, can you make the Dire side, instead of just staying on target, instead of staying on objectives, can you force them to group just a little bit? And for the other side, it's, can you effectively split push? Can you effectively split your team in a delta formation as you're looking at engagement? And can you get pickoffs before fights engage? Those are the three big things that we want to look at, especially for those pickoffs you're looking at. Can you pull out a Warlock? Can you pull out an Enigma before this fight starts so that they're not able to utilize their skills?
So as we wait for this to get started, we have a little bit of some tech stuff getting dealt with the computers. Let's talk about some things that we chatted with yesterday. So UC Davis, I brought up a second ago, but we want to dig into it. Lucky 5-7 told us when we were talking to them, like point blank, I want to read the actual quote. There's not a hero in the pool that we can't play.
Yeah.
Is that a benefit, or is that sometimes become a problem for your team? If you've got the access to every hero, does it become difficult to know what hero?
It's always, Dota has a lot of heroes, so it's always very difficult in order to keep them all in mind for the best possible draft, and it is easy to get overloaded. It's an advantage to have a lot of tools, but I do agree that it is a disadvantage in that you might have a lot of tools in your belt, but if you're not best with a couple of them, that means that you're probably not as skilled as your opponent, who is going to be an expert for the 7 heroes.
Right.
You really want to have at least 1 or 2 experts on your team for the purpose of just making sure that you're winning lanes, for the purpose of making sure that you have somebody who fully understands limitations of the hero. I mean, arguably last game was lost because somebody, the team as a whole didn't fully understand the limitations of an Ursa, and their opponents did.
Right. Now, I will say that this is something else that we talk about when we talk about having a specialist on the team. It forces the opposing team to burn valuable bans or picks potentially to make sure that you can't use them. I mean, when we talk about a player like Wii, for instance,
Yeah.
you know, you have to ban certain heroes against him or you lose the game. So having a specialist means, for instance, when you go up against Yukon, recommended, most people say, ban a Shadow.
Or is it Spirit Breaker?
Ban the Spirit Breaker.
And we saw what happens when you don't, right?
Exactly.
Now, the question is that hero, if that hero pool is just one or two specialty heroes, then you have a complete dead weight of ally, who's basically his role is to help you win the draft. And then it weighs heavier on the rest of your team because their job then is to win the game in which you won the draft. Whereas if you have every hero at your disposal, you're going to try to win the draft just based on diversity, but it might be harder to win the game with specialty.
Absolutely. So, and I know a lot of these players, when you talk to the CSL, the average CSL player, most of them will say 4 to 6, maybe 8 heroes that they sort of specialize in, which seems like a big enough pool. It forces some bans, but gives you a lot of options in terms of return play. We also see a lot of static positions coming out of these players.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the other thing we see. So right now we're going to have to do a quick remake of the lobby, so just bear with us as we get that underway, guys. But what I was saying is with the specializations and the way that they play, it really sort of dictates the pace of these CSL matches.
Absolutely. And the specialization is not the only factor in that. It's also communication, right? As I mentioned before, without a centralized shot caller, it's very difficult to play the margins of a hero. If, for example, in that last game, there was a centralized shot caller who was thinking about the best way to engage, then there would have been a centralized shot caller who had the ability to say to his team, there is a buyback probably, let's force that buyback out, but do it safely. Instead, they had everybody kind of moving in as a group, and when you do move in as a group, that group think mentality can give you much faster reaction time in fights, but it can also draw an entire team into a bad situation because everybody's moving forward on a very slight advantage that turns really quickly. So communication is really key. That's why I think most really successful teams have a centralized shot caller for really hectic situations, but then diffuse that to whoever's the most prominent player at the moment for any sort of non-engagement activities.
And I'll be honest with you, I don't know who the UBC shot caller is other than the fact that I can hear them yelling over there during these matches. But they have a very different system. They have a solidified shot caller and sort of a team dynamic. On the opposite side, Davis has said that they start out with Jacobo as their early game shot caller, as the 5 support, and then they shift that over to Saitana, who's the one player.
Right.
Is that something you see pretty commonly among teams? Does that hurt a little bit to deal with the shift in the middle?
Yeah, one players don't usually do the shot calling for the laning phase, although they tend to step into the game a little bit more as the game goes on. If I'm not mistaken, he is the shot caller in air quotes, but the team makes a lot of the decisions together as a whole or just based on that groupthink mentality. We are going to have the game remade here in all pick, and so we are looking at the game starting here in just a couple of seconds. So you floated out to me which one of these teams based on the draft do I think would win, and I had said I think that it's too close to call. It really depends on which team makes more mistakes.
Yeah.
Let me float to you. Which team, based on performance, past performance, do you think, independent of the draft, comes in here with an advantage?
Independent of the draft, I think you have two sides of the coin. You've got UBC with the mental, the problem that they are the defending champions. They come from a pedigree, a school that supports them, that has a lot of successful programs. And there's a stress to that because you have to come in defending yourself. UC Davis is a team that their professors wouldn't even let them leave to come here before they took their finals. I mean, that's how much UC Davis doesn't necessarily focus on esports just yet. It's a growing thing, and hopefully next year maybe we can get a major final pushed back to get a player here. But the fact of the matter is, on one side you've got the I'm expected to win versus the guys who want to prove that esports are legit, that they are a legit team. So honestly, it's easy for me to say UBC, Gorgon, but in this game 2, I have to give it to Davis because I know that they have something to prove.
All right, so we are moving back in here. As you can see, the game is underway, and everybody is moving out from their lane. Keep in mind, when you are starting an all pick, there's a little bit less time for communication, a little bit less time to make sure that you're coordinating everything in terms of your item purchases.
Hopefully they use that time, but you're right. The pre-game countdown is a little bit different. Both teams, though, already off the line very, very quickly. The only time an all perk versus a captain's mode matters at the beginning of the game is if you are planning some sort of smoke move. So I don't expect to see that sort of thing happen in this match necessarily. However, it might be a bit of a mind game if you can put that together because you know the other team may not expect it either.
Yeah, well, we don't necessarily have a smoke cast, but we do have some funny business coming out here. Maybe we can sneak in a dire side introduction as we look at a potential engagement.
All right, so we'll watch them as they move forward, and we'll reintroduce the teams for those of us who are just here for the reform. Lucky 5-7 is going to be playing that Vengeful Spirit. We're going to have Biology on the Jakiro. It's going to be Chocobo playing the Hard Support on the Shaman. BG is going to be playing the Juggernaut, a very, very different hero than he played last time around in the form of the Storm Spirit. And last but not least, Hope on the Axe.
And we do have for University of British Columbia here on the Radiant side, it's going to be Old Big Bun Theory doing the electric slide on the Zeus. Jellybean Bob is the mystery enigma. Q is reprising his role on the Spectre. Cal is going to be playing with some help from his demon friends on the Warlock, and KCY is doing the monkey business on the Monkey King.
Monkey King going to go his early rotation here, starting the spy game early on.
There we go.
Nice, there you go. The creeping tree, if you will. It's a popular martial arts move that we get to see transition to Dota.
Now we do have a little bit of funny business here as well coming from his opponent. Everybody's doing a lot of scouting here. I actually like this play from the Enigma to scout with these Eidolons,
Yeah.
but what he doesn't know is it's actually working against him.
Big one here, he might be in a little bit of trouble. They come around from behind.
That's-
Jacobo's there. He's got the
oh.
shackle first by. Spin to win, and then he grins. BG gets the knockdown, and the first blood very fast.
That Enigma using those Eidolons to scout actually hurt his team so much here, despite the fact that it was a really good play. The fact that his opponents were willing to invest in not one but two smokes and just walk past him made his mid feel so much safer than he was.
You know, I have a friend who's a cop, and I'll tell you every time, safety is an illusion, and every mid has to live by that law. And in this case, he did it. So he was caught off guard, put down, and this, I think, shows how UC Davis wants to win this game. Early on, rotating those supports, going for the picks, very, very important. They're not willing to let Zeus get out in front.
Yeah, and you can actually see. So one of the reasons we needed to deal with this remake is because there were problems swapping heroes around. You can see with the lanes, the Spectre in the aggressive lane here, they were playing some mind games. They put the hero players, they originally drafted in the captain's mode with the wrong players on heroes so that they would think that these lanes were going to be completely different. Now putting the Spectre into the aggressive lane, because they are up a game, if this goes poorly, it could put them on a serious bad route for the duration of the game. But if it goes well, they might be able to burst this Spectre out to a really good start over the opponent carry.
Definitely. So some very cheeky plays by them, getting things started here. Maybe not as cheeky as they had hoped because they were unable to keep it hidden until the very start of the buzzer due to the lack of swap potential in a pre-created lobby. Meanwhile, BG going to stare at Big Bun there. He takes a couple of clicks. I'm not really sure what he was up to there. And we see KCY rotating around, wants to move on BG. BG decides to chase him. Not sure about KCY's damage output.
Yeah, Juggernaut should have a bit of difficulty here once the Zeus is able to spam pass. If the Zeus can get close enough to knock down the healing ward, but if the Zeus is not feeling safe enough to do so, which right now he's not because he knows the Monkey King is floating around here, and he really just needs some help to come in order to close that gap. You can see the Juggernaut got harassed down to half health, and the Zeus was unable to close the gap in order to keep him that low.
Absolutely. So BG going to keep continuing to farm down here. Let's look at the bottom lane where it's going to be Jellybean Bob up against Lucky 5-7 in a 1v1 up on top. You said you saw that Spectre in the aggressive. What do they need to get out of this to justify the aggressive tri-lane?
Well, fortunately, they're actually aggressive tri-laning into what is the equivalent of their opponent's off lane.
Sure.
So I think it's not necessarily what do they need out of this off lane. They need the Spectre to get out of place, right? But looks like we're going to see this fall back, rather.
Yeah.
But really, I think the big story is what do they get out of the safe lane? With the Enigma trying to shut down this Vengeful Spirit, this one-on-one is not one that we see go on.
No.
And I honestly don't know how to shake out. The Eidolon should give the Enigma a pretty decent advantage, but he's got a super small mana pool. And the damage output from the Vengeful Spirit is going to be pretty decent into Enigma, who only has 5 armor at this stage in the game.
Right. The armor reduction, even on the Eidolon, is going to allow her to burn them down relatively quickly if he tries to harass her in lane. And honestly, one of the dangers of the Eidolon situation is it's more gold to handle Lucky 5-7, which is something you never want to give them.
Yeah, and ultimately what we are looking at here too as well is the Axe going to be able to get a Blink Dagger up and force out some really bad engagements, because the Spectre is, in the aggressive lane, she's going to get off to a slower start empirically than she otherwise would. Even if she's getting kills, she would have to get a lot of kills to make up the difference for what she's going to miss because of the different laning deliveries.
So we're going to see UCD continue to put a little bit of harassment
There we
here
go.
towards the tower.
They see KCY. They know that he's coming indeed. They want to scoot around on him, I think.
They're trying to figure out the best way to sort of engage on him. Because that's the thing about the monkey is it's not easy to do, and KCY knows, he saw the movement, he saw the sporadic nature of the change.
This is such a good play for him. Look at this, gonna go in and engage on the Vengeful Spirit. That was brilliant. I'll have to go over that in a minute. The stun is gonna come out from Mark 57, but here comes Thur.
Comes in, gets up, and over time, they're gonna get some help from Chocobo. Now Chocobo, maybe in some exposed positions, they lose the bench, they want Chocobo too. Good ice map to buy some space, but Chocobo's gonna tick. And that was a really nice pick and a really nice play. Almost costing Chocobo his life, too.
God, Casey, why that play? I am just... So he showed intentionally around the back line up top and then from the tree down bottom. His opponents, while we were talking about they were clearly trying to figure out the best way to engage, he was already gone and ready to engage in the bottom. There was no way they were going to stop that.
Chocobo's trying to make KCY pay for his cockiness and does get a shackle. Walks away with 7 health.
No, he's done.
He's dead. There's the last tick. Finishes the job, so it's a 1-for-1. And again, KCY is still coming out as the winner off of that amazing rotation that you brought up there. So next level thinking by UCB, showing us why it is that they're the returning champion.
Yeah, there's no way, when you're forcing these kind of rotations, there's just no way that the Spectre is going to be able to contest the last hits onto this Axe. So that is the downside to his team taking these fights out to. But presumably the idea is that you're going to Iron Talon, you're going to Poor Man's Shield, or something along those lines, you're going to be able to catch yourself back up. Maybe we even see a combat-oriented Spectre instead of the radiance-oriented Spectre like we did this morning that worked out so well.
Well, and we know that UBC is comfortable letting Chu get to a point where he's farming cash, right? In the last game, they were already shooting here. They're looking at what they're doing again as they go on 1-5-7. KCY out of the shoot, the stun, the follow-up, and the full power, and they finish the job without even needing to use it. And this is 2 in a row down below as Lucky 5-7 can't get in.
Yeah, they're doing a really good job of maximizing this stage of the game where they do have an advantage. If their opponents don't completely shut down, we're going to see Thur die as well, but it's not the end of the world for Thur to die.
It's just this bottom lane is rapidly turning into a Valentine's Day massacre.
Yeah, and they've also been able to move the Spectre down into this lane as well. So Spectre's going to catch back up on farm. At this point, I think that this is a pretty good move.
KCY still pushing like Lucky 5-7 back. You're going to have to bring Chocobo in for support at this point. And that said, Spectre is here and enjoying the fruits of this aggressive style of play up on top. Axe is happy to be left alone, but is the amount of play they're getting on the bottom enough to counter the fact that Axe is just happily doing whatever he wants?
You know, I have 2 questions about that. It's not to just ignore your question, but the Juggernaut's doing pretty well here in the mid lane as well because there's been no rotation time, and it's actually going to be killed straight up on his
And the win knocks him down. Zeus is dead and sent back to his throne. So another nice hit. So you're winning 1 lane, but you're losing 2.
Right. So remember, I kind of had fumbled my way through the fact that the Juggernaut, as long as he's not being moved aggressively, we're going to be the bottom.
So again, here the fight with the nice double stun. Here KCY gets the double stun. There's the Warlock. Now the chase is on. They've got 3 all together. All plays in. Zeus goes boom. Everyone goes down to a 3-man pick on the bottom. And it might be one of Juggernaut's here to play. He playing like he's on a Storm Spirit. Comes in looking for some kills. Chu goes on the outside. KCY on the chase as Bait gets away, and off goes the Juggernaut.
Yeah, they're going to have to back the Juggernaut out at least until he's got the spin back up. He does have face.
Meanwhile, up on top, the Jelly Bean Bob going head-to-head, almost got him with that Maledict.
That's actually a really tough kill to get as an Enigma because you have so many units attacking him. He's just you know, if he gets even remotely lucky, he's going to just spin all of your units down.
Absolutely. He's already back in. He's like, I am annoyed at you for doing this. Now I want to fight you. Maledict comes out. Jellybean Bob runs for the hills and says, I wish I could get a last hit right now.
I don't want to look away from this bottom lane for very long.
Again, but that's not the end of it because up on
Wow.
top, Jellybean Bob gets some help.
The Zeus comes up and Zeus that kill.
Well, back to the bottom with again, they get the ice path out. They want to play. Spectre's caught inside of the shackle, running out of time. He's got to make a move. Chew on the go. Can he get away?
He's done.
No, he can't. That'll be the end of him.
Oh,
nope, he does
wow.
live.
The dual breath missed. The dual breath did not land, and that saved his life.
Dual breath misses, and Warlock heals. And together they get Spectre out of a sticky situation.
Jeez, he was dead to rights there. It was maybe 3 or 4 units away.
Bo's got to run. He's been caught inside of the trees. A very bold play by UC Davis. They're going all or nothing in this match. They do not want to let up off the gas pedal, and they get themselves a pick. Denied the Spectre, but kept together and got themselves a good kill there.
Yeah, we're starting to see this period of the game where now Dire is able to stand up on their own 2 feet. Pretty soon, they're going to have that big combo to deal with, though. So it's going to continue to kind of stair-step its way through this game, where each team has very small windows of opportunity. Basically, from this point forward, those windows of opportunity are going to be based around.
They're going to go, baby. They want to make this happen. Nice back down, but it's not on Jellybean. They get a huge range stun. Lucky 5-7 is going to get out of this, but the slow is there, but they don't have the ability to chase. So all they get is 1 out of that. But I thought if Davis had stayed a 2 seconds longer, that would have been a massive loss.
But they did back themselves out, and they are going to be They do have the Axe, who basically got a blink dagger anytime he wants. In fact, he has picked that up. So you're looking at.
Well, hold on a second. But they're still fighting. Lobo's got the shackle, but just bump in. He's going to go down, and BGC right back in this. TP comes out from BG. He wants to fight. He's chasing Coke. Co's going to try to get himself out of trouble as he jukes around the crystals, trying to buy as much time as he can, but BG will not be detoured. The man wants to play. He's got an ultimate. He's going to go with the spin and save the ultimate. Coke can't get out of it. Tries to use the circles, but all he ends up is meeting his death.
Yeah, there's and hope continues to just remain up here. We saw what this guy can do on the recent assassin when he got off to not even that great of a start. He's getting complete free farm up here. He is able to activate. The one advantage is that his opponents are contending with. He has revealed himself with that lane, so they shouldn't be caught off guard. But even so, it's very difficult at this juncture in the game to make sure that your positioning is strong enough that an axe with a blink can't just drill through somebody on your team.
So Axe is going to head down towards that mid lane, join the rest of his team as they come with the push. Biology finishes off the bottom tower, and they are definitely starting to try and take map control of this thing. You see Davis, only a small gold lead, but ultimately it feels like a lot.
Yeah, they only just recently pulled into the gold lead as well, basically from that tower that they took. But they are up 2 towers. If they were able to put that into some combat actions, they could find themselves in a really, really difficult to stave off position. Especially since there's still no Warlock ultimate. He is about 3/4 of the way through level 5, and he doesn't have anywhere to go and get experience. You can see him hanging out basically in his base.
And when we talk about UCD in the last game, one of the struggles that they had was they had a really good CKCY comes in, gets caught by the shackle before he gets stunned, and that will be the end of him with a nice dunk from the Axe. Last time around, UCD didn't have the ability to break the high ground, they just had the ability to play the Shadow Shaman. They have heroes, and the Jakiro, they're a lot bit in a better position to try and take these high ground pushes and not let UBC farm their Spectre into a winnable position.
Yeah, and this is absolutely what we were talking about a couple of minutes ago as well, where it's a stair step, right? The advantage was seriously on the side of the Radiant here just a few minutes ago because of the nature of the draft. But now, while they're waiting for ultimates to become available and their opponents are able to push down towers much faster, they're on the back foot. This game largely will likely come down to which team is able to, or which team, oh wow, single man black holes, the TP is coming in here, and the Spectre running, and that's going to be a dead Axe.
So Hope's going to get knocked down and floats back to base as the rest of his team has to fall back. They thought about making a push. I think Axe was looking to get maybe a call from behind during the defense, but it ends up costing a take and a nice investment of the Enigma ultimate.
Yeah, and they did not have to spend anything else. They are ready for this fight. It's a ruin, and it's about to start.
There they go. Good block, catches 4. aggressive play there with the chains on everyone. They're going to spin themselves out of this, but there's the lockup. Already one down, and they're going to make it more. Juggernaut's got to go, but he's got nowhere to get to. Lucky 5-7, do they have a stun? They don't, so he gets himself out, but that is 3 down for the price of what? 1 black hole. They're going to go ahead and push forward and make this game, get themselves back into a good position. They're in gold control now for the first time in a little while, and they are in a good push position as well.
Well, they did use Black Hole, they did use Chaotic Offense, they
true.
did use Monkey King's ultimate, Wukong's command as well. They use Zeus's ultimate, and remember, just a minute ago I was saying as soon as the Chaotic Offering is up, it's going to stair step back to the Radiant side. Whichever team starts to miss these small windows of opportunity first is going to be the team to lose. And right now, there's a window of opportunity for Dire if they have even the most basic items put together. And it looks like they're in a pretty decent position to take a fight while there's no ultimates here. So
Yeah.
I'd be very surprised if we don't see a smoke out here sometime in the next 90 seconds coming out of the Dire side.
Absolutely surprised considering both their supports are carrying them. So definitely something that we expect to see. Meanwhile, down here in their own base, BG playing aggressively, sees KCY in the trees, goes to spin, and has to walk away. So his ultimate is now down, and he's going to be chased by the remainder of the Radiance. He's trying to back off, Lucky 5-7, making sure he stays safe. Meanwhile, up on top, instead of the smoke, they're going to do a split push, it looks like.
Yeah, that was actually, that showed a lot of strength that they're not backing off there. That's not something we were seeing from this team last game.
No, I mean, you remember Storm Spirit playing, or BG playing Storm Spirit last time. If it was not a kill, then it was a death.
Right. And it looked like he tilted a little bit towards the middle of it. He gave up 2 kills in quick succession. It's really good to see that this team has the potential to take a bad loss or take an unexpected loss and bounce back and still show restraint in the following game. That's sort of mentality that gets you to the finals.
So they're going to keep pushing. UC Davis, making sure that they stay on top of things, not going to let off the throttle in this match as they go through the tier 1, start to push into the tier 2. The problem is waits as all of those big push-ups start to come off here.
Yeah, they got about 45 more seconds to push this, and they did save the Serpent Wards in order to do what they can do. I would be very surprised if they don't back off in the next 20 seconds.
No, they clearly have their timings. The use of the Serpent Wards pretty much tells everyone, including the Radiant, that they're not going to
Yep. And they are just going to presumably back up. Now, here's the trick, right? Can Radiant force them to stay longer than they should? Can they get one player to hold out? And they have done it. They have forced Lucky into a bad position. Lucky is going to get the swap, and he'll just walk away. That's actually really nice from Lucky.
Yeah, they did stop the TV, so Lucky tried to get out. KCY hit what can only be explained as a mystical stun, because it looked to me like he was just outside of range. But hey, it worked out.
That's the effect of a unit compression parallax, my friend.
Whoa. I don't need to hear about unicorns. All right, so let's see what's going on down here in the bottom lane. His Hope is right back to farming his own game. He's living his own life, and he's doing a good job of it. He's putting a hand to Midas, though, here at the 16-minute mark. How do you feel about that, Diaz?
You know that I don't love Midas. Typically, I think that it's a little bit greedy. I don't know that is really going to hurt them necessarily here because this hero's sole job is just to initiate. But and also, there's something that you got to keep in mind that if he goes into the blade mill, we're gonna have to
moving on. Sure, they see him. They go on the ice path, followed by the shackle. In comes the slows. Everyone's there. Can they get the call in time? They do, and the dunk, and Spectre never stood a chance. Jellybean Bob comes to help, but they're following up. They want to close the field. 157 ends up losing his life in the intro. Biology very low. Jellybean Bob on the follow. Wants to try to pass this thing off. Another off 5 seconds for the shackle. He's just open for behind, but he's with the spin to win. As he tries to put the damage on Jellybean Bob. And the Zeus Black Hole catches the Juggernaut. He's going to go down a little too much confidence. They picked off 3 in the chases on. Chocobo is going to be the 4th man. And the boys from UBC never say die.
So we're talking this whole game about how this is going to be a back and forth of advantage based on cooldowns after the laning phase. And instead of respecting the cooldown, it's respecting the advantage. UCD just kind of run in and say, oh, we kind of have a little moment of opportunity. Those are the sorts of plays that are the game makers or breakers. If you can get one pick while your opponent has all of the cooldowns available, it's huge. You just back away. Yep. You know, and then you force them to start to feel the pressure. One pick here, one pick there. They're never using their spells. They're never using their ultimates. You're keeping good vision up. Eventually, they're going to blow them in a bad position, and that's when you just charge right down their lanes.
But if you don't respect the authority, then you are going to get trashed. That's exactly what UBC brought to that bottom lane fight. The Juggernaut, I think, last minute picks does not work out. But UC Davis does seem to be short They also run with that never say die attitude. They make a move here that I think is completely unexpected.
Yeah, so they actually is going to go into the pipe of inside first, it looks like. And that probably very nice play. So, Monkey
They said, hey, Casey, go check out the Roche pit and see what's happening there. And just as he arrived, the announcement came up on screen.
What a play. Everything is down to the Warlock available, but there's not much else to put down.
You got Zeus in the ice path, he'll decide to do back damage on him. The chase is on, big one here, trying to get himself out of trouble. Jakiro has gone down to the ultimate, taking a lot of damage as well, but not quite enough. Zeus will ultimately fall, and they lost Jakiro for their trouble. They picked up so much.
Yeah, that's just about, and that is a and you can just see that these guys know what we've been talking about. They know the Spectre very close to losing a life there. But these guys know, because the second they respawn after that big loss because the black hole was spent, they immediately go into Roche because there's not going to be a heavy amount of contest potential there. They immediately spoke after Roche because there's not going to be a heavy amount of contest potential there.
UCDave is playing some pretty good Dota. A couple of mistakes maybe on the bottom lane, for instance, but never giving up and completely responding with the right decisions here. As they go into the jungle, they're going to get a little bit of farm, a lot of farm actually. Hope very close to finishing up his Analyst. He died a few times, so that's been delaying it. And I guess it's ability he's going to go with. He did grab a Hood of Defiance in the intro.
Yeah. All right, so he's going to take that big surge of gold and invest it. I suppose that's all right. His team really doesn't go late as well as a Spectre Enigma. I guess the Zeus falls off potentially. The Warlock falls off potentially. But Monkey King scales really well as a fourth, relative to most fourths. Right. And the Spectre obviously is the best late game hero that is in this game.
Oh, he may not uses his ultimate to try and get away, but Jacobo finishes the job. Go ahead and utilize the pop shot to finish the job, so he gets a run, but that's not a Spectre. Fights out over the mob, far forward, gets caught by get that kill up to the high ground. Jacobo watches him jump, then locks him up in the trees. Goes for the follow. KCY trying to get himself out of trouble. Jumps as far as he possibly can. Will it be enough? Wow. Comes around, but he's just waiting and buying time for Big Bun 3 to play his game. He's stunned. He's kind of trying to get himself out of trouble. Here comes Hope. Jumps to the thick of things, gets off the ball, and now they're on the run. Using the courier for a little bit of distraction to buy some time. Chocobo, Watt crossing the river. BG hiding in the trees. And both able to survive what I thought was going to be a tough position for him.
Yeah, they actually played that really well. And the Monkey King tree hop usage here. KCY, I've been very impressed by his Monkey King so far this game.
His MK in this game has been much stronger than his Tree and Protector was in the last one. Both are filling similar roles, but KCY able to be more aggressive than he was with the Tree and Protector.
He's playing a lot of mind games. He tried to play the mind games last game as well on the Tree and Protector, but the lane was just so rough. It was a bad lane composition, and the draft overall just kind of mitigated all the advantages that the Tree and Protector would bring.
Hope and Co see each other and both say not today and walk off in different directions.
So we are starting to look at, this is a moment where, in theory, UBC has an advantage in this moment, right? The black hole is up, the Thunder Thunder God's Wrath is also available. So, and so is Black. So despite the fact that we will be upstream, you don't want to engage too heavily through UCD right now. They want to fall back, they want to farm, they want to force a mistake. If they could, in an ideal world, trick or otherwise kind of force out a black hole, maybe onto a support, like trade a support for a black hole, that would end up the rest of the Aperture Tower is falling.
So waits against the tower, goes ahead and grabs himself a haste. He's headed down to Lucky Fight, gets off to his up position, he's going to run. Juggernaut has arrived, wants to make his play here on Warlock. Warlock cannot get out of the way, gets himself up just in time. Good stun from the Maledict. Axe has arrived, but he was gone for too long, and they are unable to get a kill out of that play.
That was a really good play. Who's got the, so the Guardian Greaves on the Enigma coming over. That's what I thought. I just missed it in the inventory for a second.
Guardian Greaves plus Maledict was just too strong, couldn't get that kill, and now they will say, well, it's going to be tower. They get harassed, though. He's fly up to the high ground.
Oh, wow!
Nice play there. Juggernaut dropping very low. Gonna go ahead and burn them down. Lucky Five's gonna try to get out. They want to finish before they come back. It's very low, but there comes the Juggernaut puts up the ultimate on Spectre. Spectre's gonna go down to the edge, no escape. Now it's on the Warlock. Warlock on the run. Finishes off the Shadow Shaman, spins back around, gets a pick on the lock, and he'll walk back. Now they lost 4, but he's taken 3. Thinking about pushing, and you gotta get back spam by Jellyfish.
That fight would have gone completely differently if the Monkey King hadn't had his tree locked out from under him. Right as he was activating the goal, he was stunned for a really long duration of that fight, and he had the perfect moment to lock the entire opposition into a Wukong command with the Fatal Bonds and the Chaotic Offering there. That would have been a 3 or 4 for nothing trade. I did not even see what knocked that tree down. What was it? So his own teammate made that engagement a fairly even trade instead of what should have been a dominating turnaround. And now a lot of cooldowns are no longer available, giving a pretty heavy advantage to UCD, barring an amazing black hole. There will, however, be a blink tag really soon.
It was very unfortunate timing. He was in the air landing on the tree as he was casting the Midnight Pulse, and it just did not work out.
Yeah, he was actually spinning around with, he was doing the spin with the Wukong command. So even if if it had happened a half a second later, at least the Wukong command would have gotten out there, and he would have just been stunned.
That's true. So just terrible, terrible timing. Jellybean Bob now is going to go ahead and farm up the Ancients. We go ahead and look at the mid position. Chocobo and Lucky 5-7 sticking around together. A 3K lead only for UC Davis, so still really anybody's match. The score says 25-16, but as you know in the game of Dota, the score never really means everything.
Yeah, this is a moment where I think UCD could really benefit to apply some pressure, right? The Spectre does not have a Radiance yet, and it can be kind of punished for that lack of Radiance. The Enigma does have a Hand of Midas, so you can punish that as well.
I'm a little worried about David. There's a term that you've probably heard before called sense of urgency. You talk about needing to accomplish a goal here. I feel like they don't have that sense of urgency they need to have, because last time they didn't have either, and they ultimately got run over by the Spectre.
Jeez, actually the Black Hole is going to be used here. It's got an Ancient and a Juggernaut. He's going to get a solo kill, it looks like. There is no surviving the hole.
Wow. Nice and great job. So Enigma hasn't necessarily been using these black holes for the entire team, but the times that he's using them are giving them very strong picks. That Juggernaut, a very good grab. Perhaps a little bit cocky going up there to farm that Ancient camp, though.
Yeah, I don't think he thought that the solo kill potential was there, but just a little bit of damage from the Zeus, like the minimum amount of damage the Zeus can do, basically. He found himself in a really, really tough position.
Well, I mean, you got to know, like, Zeus has a global. You've got the chance for Monkey King to always be around. And that's the thing is, like, if you cross the river, you have to know that you're not going to get taken out.
Well, he did have, it's about to expire, a really deep scouting gun here. And I think he thought, if the Monkey King had walked up there and then jumped into a tree, I would know. If the Enigma's coming, I would know. This is pretty safe because I can get up there. He just saw the Enigma, and I don't think he expected A, Enigma to be willing to blow a black hole for just him, because the cooldown's so important. But B, that I don't think that he thought that if the Enigma did blow the black hole, the kill would be possible. Because, you know, you can dodge the spin while you heal from the ward. It was just enough damage.
All the way past the stairwell.
He was dropping this.
Okay.
So presumably he was going in there just to make sure that his team is ready to start to choke out that jungle. In an ideal world, his team would have come with him under cover of smoke, but...
Well, this is fine here, right? I mean, dropping that ward, but then when he literally came down here...
Yeah, there was no reason for that. He was trying to maximize his strength.
Right.
They were maximizing.
Sometimes a 5 can't think like a 1.
You know, it really will almost always benefit you to just back off and have no farm rather than go in for that one extra last hit. But every single player at every single level has trouble fighting that urge.
Yep. That 2 in the hand are better than 1 in the bush. Right? 1 in the hand better than 2 in the bush. Classic example of him seeing some grass that he wants to get his hands on. He's going to push down the mid lane. Lucky 5-7, the rest of the crew not willing to let up the wall on their fly. They know that they're sort of on a time limit. They don't want to deal with the Spectre like last time around, so they are being very aggressive with their push.
Yeah, but they've missed out on this opportunity to capitalize with the black hole down. That was absolutely crucial. If Enigma spends his black hole on 1 minute, you have to engage as soon as that hero respawns. That's the only moment where you have a substantial team fight advantage. Otherwise, these plays are just too difficult, especially because the blink on the Enigma, which also, by the way, we were talking earlier about how he was too far forward. He hadn't seen the mid yet, so he probably didn't know that the Nigma could just show up. You know, that
Right.
also probably played a role.
UC Davis is going to go ahead and get themselves an Aegis. They head back towards the mid position. Axe farm the opponent's jungle, but that ward that Chocobo died to put down keeps him alive and makes him able to farm that jungle out. Now we go to the mid position where Fire start to exercise their use of the Aegis. They've got it on BG, so BG between the Soul Cast, the Manta style, and the Aegis is a very difficult to
This is, it's really hard to call who's going to have the advantage in this situation because obviously the Aegis gives you a substantial ability to just move onto the high ground without really fear of the reprisal. But at the same time, when you have all of these ultimates up and you have a forced choke point, you can buy a lot of time.
Definitely. All right, so now you're looking at that high ground. The question is, the last time they couldn't, and they this time. Beatles goes ahead anyway, pops the spin, is going to use that first DPS. They pop the wards down as well.
There it is!
Black hole catches 3, and they start to melt. Lucky 5-7 can't get away. It's Axe in the air, already 4 down. Jug's coming back up, but Axe is going to drop far from the Jug, and now it's a chase. As BG runs for the hills, the rest of the crew is going, but the speed on Chu is there. KCY jumping through the trees. They're pinging him out, saying make it into a push/chase, baby. As BG gets caught by the Spectral Dagger, things are starting to unwind quickly. He does have to spin, but no escape potential in the full TP. KCY's stun is ready. As soon as it comes off, it hits.
Oh, boy.
This is going to be it. It's a team wipe, baby. As the boys from British Columbia show us that there is no way that they're letting this go easily or quietly into the night.
Yeah, this is a really devastating turn, obviously because you lost L5, but you cannot move into an immediate push now that the cooldowns are not available, or now that the spells are not available because you didn't save the Serpent. So the one big cooldown that you have to hold on to is no longer available. Otherwise, maybe they lose 5, but they can go in and finish off that big tower when they know that there's no black hole, when they know there's no Wukong command, stuff like that.
Caster says we haven't seen a lot of big black holes on until he's in the lab. When comes out, it's a massive black hole that completely eradicates UC Davis.
I really like the way that he plays this. He plays it like the old school Chinese supports from like the Phi Fenrir combination used to do this all the time with either a Time Hunter or an Enigma. Back when they were on BG Gaming, this was a huge play for them, right? They would move in with these big AoE ults that guarantee a kill and just blow it on the most important hero all by himself. Yeah, you're expending your cooldown, but you're also forcing your opponents to play very carefully, buying space, and it only works, the strategy only works when you have a very hard late game carry, and Spectre is that hard late game carry. You don't see this style strategy work as well anymore, because life stealers come into the game as your carries, so just buying space won't necessarily win the
I think
game.
another factor of that strategy is the tilt factor, right?
Yeah,
The idea that
absolutely.
you can tilt the opposing team. And we've hit a point where it's a lot harder to tilt them on the other team again. Here in the CSL, these guys are semi-pro players, so using that strategy, you can be able to see their back foot and make them feel a little bit tilted.
These guys can take this tower probably without any losses if they just drop the Serpent wards, but they need to make sure that they're split up so that they can't be forced into an engagement. It will be difficult because the Serpent wards are going to drop really quickly.
Right. They need something like they need that BG spin up there with the Serpent Wards to maintain.
They
that
can't do
damage
that.
up,
If
but
they do
can't
that, they're
risk
gonna
it.
lose.
Exactly. So that's a tough point. Again,
He's going to try.
He wants to a little bit of space. Chicobo gets melted, just throwing down the wards. The double stun from KCY is massive. Biology gets shown what's inside there, and now we're going to see BG try to get somebody. Pops the ultimate on the Spectre. The rest of the team responds. Lucky jumps around, manages to get the kill. But it's not going to be enough. They lose 3 for the price of 1, and the only reason he got that Spectre was he got pretty lucky with the way those bounces landed.
Yeah, and they didn't get that tower. They hit very close, but they did not manage to get it on the back line to Zeus and the Monkey King able to clean up those Serpent wards just in the nick of time. Had they gotten that tower, then they can take shrines, then they can start to choke out of that. Maybe they have enough advantage. But we're at the stage in the game where respawn times are getting very close to the cooldown times. And you'll notice, by the way, no black hole usage in that fight.
They're going to butt that.
There's a BKB usage. That's a 10-7 BKB. I mean, that's something. Yeah, he was trying to preserve this tower. I think he expected to be able to force a fight here, and they weren't buying it. Here's the difference, right, between UBC and UC Davis. Last game, UC Davis saw the buyback, and said, we're all in. And UBC's like, oh, you bought back? Oh, that's nice. We'll take it.
Yeah.
They are happy to walk away with any little advantage that they can get.
It does feel a lot like you sort of alluded to it earlier with the way that they're playing in their ultimates. It feels like that a little bit of an old school style of Dota with this 4 protect 1, only take fights where we can come out ahead, never push farther than we're expected to in terms of extension. It's a very classic outlook, but it's very, and that was sort of the staple of that style of play, was discipline. And these guys are definitely showing it.
It was discipline and coordination. Those are the two things you need for that style of play, and this team really does. And that's not something we see at Purple on the CSL team. It goes to show you why they're defending champions, why they're here again, how they cleaned up in the regular season. It's discipline and communication. They've got those two in spades, even if they don't. And I'm not saying this is true, but even if they didn't have the mechanical skill to back that up, they'd still be doing very well just because they're making the right decisions at the right times.
Very strong play by the guys from UBC, not getting frazzled, but again, a big props to Davis, who fought hard and has worked hard to stay in this game. I mean, we're at 36 minutes. We do finally see a 4,000 gold advantage to UBC, but this is light. This is they're doing a good job of maintaining their game plan, trying to keep on top of things.
And for heard axe, he's just on creeps. So for your team too, if you've got a Juggernaut Shadow Shaman and you're not stripping high ground by 34 minutes, 35 minutes, you're starting to really worry that this is going to look just like last game. Looking advantage, we're not able to capitalize. Remember, I said very early in the game, the team that makes the most mistakes in their windows of opportunity, the team that takes the best advantage of their windows of opportunity is going to be the team that wins. And I've seen 2 big mistakes out of at least 2, maybe 2.5 big mistakes from windows of opportunity for UCD, and I've only seen 1 coming out of their opponents.
Absolutely. I'm not really sure what to make of this Hand of Midas.
Yeah, that's why I wowed.
Stash.
I don't love it. It means that they're basically in for the long haul, right? They're planning on choking their opponents out. They're not going to try to high ground anymore, especially unless their opponents have already lost the fight. And they're just going to try and maintain vision. Presumably there's going to be a gem purchase if there hasn't been one already. Maintain vision, knock their opponent's vision down, and take the entire jungle, try to outfarm them, and be able to force their opponents to be uncomfortable. It's really hard to force UBC to feel uncomfortable.
And that's the problem with a team that is pedigreed the way that UBC is, forcing them into a tilt or into a first fight in the soft do. The question is, here we go again. We're going to see the black hole comes up. Earlier, and the ice path comes out, but not quite enough. This is a safety. Oh no! Monkey kick from the side. They end up losing 2, and UBC will take the tower. So they had it earlier. They decided not to force the issue, and they win. They got the double pick, and then casually win.
This is a winnable fight for them. Like, even without the axe, especially if the axe were to buy back or something into a fight, if they are able to move out, wall that black hole's down, Juggernaut can go into the high ground and spin and be relatively safe. Only the Warlock is the concern. So this is a moment of opportunity, a rare moment of opportunity here for Dire that they probably will not see again without having to defend their high ground.
Interesting choice. So they decided they were pushing the mid, put some damage on it, and decided before anyone even showed in this defensive posture to rotate down towards the bottom, assuming that maybe they're
This is a team that knows what the hell is going on, right? UBC saw, we don't have black hole, that's the only thing that slows the Juggernaut down. We'll just wait. And look at this. This is a very cheeky play. The Shadow Juggernaut all the way up on the wall. The tower. Nice deny from UBCY. That's you lose more gold on a tier 3 deny than any other tower that you're realistically going to see denied. So you don't normally do it because obviously that's potential, and that's because
like if I said, it's throwing his power with the mallet, he gets pushed away by the force staff. Now Hope comes in, but everyone else is here. Like if I said, has to be very careful to get up to the shrine, so he will live. Rescued by his team. But obviously thinking that he risked that much to try and kill him. Almost all of those shots that were dropping him so low came from essentially off screen.
And now you don't have Warlock hold, you don't have Black Hole, on the 30 seconds. You go and get a shrine right now. There's no reason to not do it. There's nothing to respond with.
So you got the Juggernaut ultimate up, so you can do a little bit of zone play.
Especially by a shrine, where there's not going to be any neutral.
Exactly. You get them caught outside, it's a good place to fight. In fact, last time that there was a shrine fight, I believe Juggernaut was able to not only kill the Spectre, but half damage on another hero shoulder after. So very strong play location for him, those involved in the lane, and they're going to play very carefully. UBC not willing to get caught out. They definitely feel like they want to close this out in two, and not risk the basic what a third game in, which is the best of one.
My suspicion here is that they did not realize exactly what Black Hole was, and it was getting pretty close. They didn't know. That's a better decision than if you're unsure if a black hole is available and you decide to go in anyway. But it would have been ideal if they knew exactly when the black hole was coming up and planned accordingly. They did have 30 seconds there of Roche potential, they had 30 seconds there of Shrine potential, of Smoking potential that they just did not utilize.
Lucky 5-7's got to fall backwards, be a little bit careful. He's got that Solar Crest as well as the Hurricane Pike and a Midas on him as well in this game. Juggernaut's got his Mjolnir finished up as well as the Magic Style and another Solar Crest. Lots of Solar Crest play coming out of these two teams. Hope can go ahead and start to lean up into the shrine. They hope someone responds. Nobody will. Essentially, it's just dangerous as he also running that hand of Midas to go late into this match.
Yeah, the Solar Crest also, when you have two of them on your team, you should be able to take Roche really easily. So any advantage could turn into a Roche advantage, could turn into a high ground roll, and they need to start applying pressure onto a Barracks eventually, but they don't need to do it right now. Right? If they do successfully do this choke play that it seems like they're trying to do, they could find themselves in a more favorable position. And look at Radiant's vision. They've got nothing. They've got one little one sort of defensive. We don't see well, they saw one for 1/100th of a second and it died instantly.
The Wizards can't stand up to that right now. So they've got Hero in the process of an Axe sitting on top of one.
Interesting. So maybe that means that you can work on the. It seems like a weird priority. Yeah, he's
definitely been working very slowly. Juke going to go in, start to work on his Aegis, and now we see the just getting involved to the side of the end, to the bottom lane, which is great for the guys in British Columbia. Taking down half the ability to just dropping the
and that's very unfortunate, but when your opponents have that black hole,
can't go into that area. Meanwhile, speaking of the black hole up, Jelly Bean Bob goes and grabs the axe, pops the black hole, says, "Come in and give me some help." He doesn't even need it. Zeus, however, says, "I'll chain lightning for the finish," and a little bit of help from his friend. Now the bottom goes, Shield, some trouble watching out some work, not going to get away here. Uses his ultimate to go up the top to get the kill, stay low. Ultimate comes out from the Juggernaut as up. They are totally okay with that.
Now, I'm not sure that they'll be able to capitalize on this, and in fact,
If
the
they can get
swap
away.
just to say that was a really good play.
They're gonna come in, big right there, makes
Oh,
they
not
finish.
enough!
What a shot! The Monkey King's too strong. They finish the job. Now Shadow Tower runs the tree. Chocobo's got to go, and he is not going to get out of time. Throws the wards down to hope for some space, maybe a trap. Lucky 5-7 in the tree doesn't know where he is. Forecasts himself. KP comes out. Zeus goes to the sky, and Venge goes to his makers. He's knocked down, and they've knocked out the entire team in that series of strange, drawn-out fight time.
Now, that seemed like a really nice series of trades here for the MCD, but then they seemed to panic, right? At the point in time where they started to get caught out, they shouldn't have dropped the certain wards. They should have used a BKB charge. He's surrounded by 4 heroes. He does not have a TP off cooldown, and he's got no allies. And his swap is already used. He's not getting away from that. The BKB charge was a 10-second BKB charge used to make his death shinier.
If Boundless Strike wasn't absolutely
the Juggernaut definitely would have done that there. And that just goes to show you the power of initiation that comes with the Monkey.
Monkey King right there. All right, so Monkey King hopefully banned to go ahead and throw that as he really made that happen and allowed the team fight to go through, or the team wipe to go through, and now they can finally return to the mid tower that they have so stalwartly avoided knocking down and take it this time.
They've done a really good job of making sure that they're only engaging on that tower. Black hole. Have black hole up, push on the tower. Don't have black hole up, go farm somewhere else.
It feels like UBC has a policy of you can't guarantee the kill.
Yeah, and it's been a really good ball team. There is something to be said about taking some high-risk shots if there's very high reward, but you don't want to just be doing it all the time. Like, it needs to be a limited time event.
So we're going to see a removal of all the base pushes on high ground, and that is something to keep in mind. UC Davis, well, last time they couldn't push the high, they have a pretty strong high ground defense this time around between that Jakiro and others. Dyer, Courier going to get picked off. No cargo to speak of, which is really scouting.
Yeah, but they can't get a shot now. And they're all pulled up in here. This is starting to look pretty bad. With the black hole, you never want
damage. Hope jumps in and wants to go with the ton. Swap battle. Huge run all the way up to the jump in the wobble and then release it on the wings. Run down, buyback to the ass. This could be all controlled. UCB with a chance to advance if they can play this correctly, but a massive ice pack. Lost it all in place. Switching it out, goes ahead and gets his regen. Back in the mid where they're trying to take the fight here. They want to close the deal. Zeus is on the run. Hope is here, but Shul is going to come in to help out. Taking a lot of damage. He's working a lot to run their entire distance. And there we go. Jesus popped. Huge stun again. They're going 4 for the price of 2. Can they finish the job? It's a team wipe, baby. Only 1 buyback. This means they can finish the boards, push into the base, take the tower, hurt the rest, and maybe even if they go straight up the middle, end this game.
Yeah, this is definitely. There's no way they need to get back. I mean, they're not snapping. They know there's no buyback. He's already spent. So
they decide not to go for the skip. They're going to take the racks out first and work their way around, playing the safe game as they have this entire match. A lot of teams tend to skip the racks and go straight to the fence.
There's what do you do here? And the Warlocks are wondering why they have to hold
Well, and of course, so he says sorry that they were doing that. And then, meanwhile, they go ahead and they finish up the racks, they get the melees, and they're going to work across the board and do this stage. For those of you who might just be tuning in, it's an important differential between forcing the win and making sure that you secure the win. If they go ahead and get mega creeps out, they may have to wait a little bit longer to the moment that Davis wants to fight, but it makes them a much higher chance of taking it all the way. Now, Shield is on the chase to rob the ultimate from Casey White. He's going to finish this touch right out of
He's going to jump in right now.
Big swap, they grab all, the bobble, everything. They take him out. 7 tries to get safe, but it's not going to be enough. Buyback from the Shadow Shaman, and that should be all she wrote. The double kill on Big Bun Fury. The wards come down, but this should be the end. He's the last man standing. He'll go down, as will the tower, as will the rag. Juggernaut has returned, but he is going to maybe move on Bob a little bit out of space here. Big Bun Fury. They're going to make himself the inside dodge. The ultimate, he's dropping pretty low, but PG now takes the damage as well. Gets him a huge ball, picks 1, picks 2. Now the chase is on. KCY is going to jump out. They only got the tower. They did not get the racks. They're going to pick off 4. KCY jumps away. He says, that's why we didn't GG. We thought we had a little bit of something left in us.
Yeah, that only happened because a very great inform from UBC. Enigma moving in to try and buy, I assume, I would guess a refresher or something. Just trying to get into a shop to get into that items. Didn't really seem to matter very much, but these guys are going to fight it out. And the fact that they did that instead of finishing off the Bears means there's no Megas here. Megas probably would have cinched the deal.
You got to know it's not a typical game. There's literally $10,000 on the line here. You're going to play until you can't anymore, and that's what Davis is doing. So
that's
kudos
a lot
to
of
them.
top row.
I would probably, that's all I ate. That and rice-a-roni. San Francisco treat. That said, though, it's a lot of moolah on the line. They're going to play until the bitter end to represent themselves well, and they do a great job of pushing back. The problem for them that they have to do is 2 lanes of supers are going to be an awful lot to deal with.
Yeah, and it's going to be an awful lot to deal with, especially given their draft. Like, they'd have no real AoE control. Axe can hold off a lane of supers, no problem. And I guess the Juggernaut does have a Mjolnir, so he can hold off the lane too. It's not the end of the world, but they are going to have to go split apart in most cases.
Right.
That does create a lot of opportunity for individual games.
They still depend very strongly on UBC making a few more mistakes just like they did. I mean, the goal lead is still 20,000 in their favor. We've hit some max level caps here. UBC is still the favorite to win this game based on what we're looking at right now. That said, Davis has proven that you can never expect to take it home.
Yeah, I don't think UBC is going to make a similar mistake again. Right there, they just thought like this game is over. There's just no way. They probably thought the GG is it, as I think everybody here in the field did. That said, we're gonna have a big engagement down here.
As they look, they get picks. It's not really going to go.
What is he doing?
Far out. Hopes going to get picked up in the air. Spins around, tries to get out, and will ultimately go down. Doesn't. I know. Nothing available. So now he is forced to get another pickoff on the bench. They're now 3-5 and a force to defend.
Yeah, and there is the refresher up on the Enigma as well. There are not a lot of buybacks. The bench here hasn't been good. This is looking pretty grim. But once again,
playing the definition of objective-based Dota, right?
yeah, well, up until that one little slip. And once again, I don't think they're going to make that mistake again. In fact, this might have been a learning moment for them if they do end up at the final systems looking like they will.
Right.
Maybe they're going to play every moment of those finals as the finals.
Trying to make one last stand. They're inside the macro bar, so he has to fall back. He's taking a lot of damage on the side, and now he's got to go backward. There's the black hole. He's not going to catch anybody this time.
He did get the Juggernaut. He's got the Juggernaut again and the hero. That's it.
Finish off two, making three, and now the run. 1-5-7 trying to get away. He's the last man standing, but the GG comes out, and UBC, University of British Columbia, the defending champions, advance to the finals against UConn in 2 games.
Yeah, that was a very good series, though. There is nothing for UC Davis to feel ashamed about. They really just got outmaneuvered a little bit in the nuance of decision making. Their mechanics were fine. Their positioning was generally good. It was just, 200 units. Either side would have won or lost almost every single one of those engagements.
So congratulations to UBC, a team that took an inch and made it into a mile consistently in that match. Nothing against UC Davis, but those guys came to play. UBC just brought the pedigree.
Yeah, it was really, really stunning.
Absolutely. So phenomenal match, guys. It was a ton of fun to cast. My name's Toppies. This is Gorgon. We're happy to be here, guys. That was the semifinal, which means the grand final is on the way. We're going to see University of British Columbia going up against UConn. Two totally different stories and a definite Cinderella in the form of UConn here, hoping to take away from the returning champions. What a phenomenal storyline. What a phenomenal final that we've got coming on the way. $20,000 on the line in the next game. Before we get to it, though, I believe we're going to try to sit down with one of the winners of that match, and then I think we're going to come back with some analysis from Ryan and Zingle, as well as if there was something in that game that you thought, hey, I want to know a little more. Remember to tweet right now with hashtag AskZingle, and he can answer it during his segment.
Absolutely. So we're going to be right back with that interview and jump right into our analysis segment.
Absolutely. So thanks again, obviously, Asus, Twitch, Band Gaming for making this possible. You guys are the true champions here, and of course, you, the viewers, the ones who make it all worth hanging out at the desk. We love you. We look forward to spending the rest of the evening with you. Don't go anywhere, because we'll be right back after this. Welcome back, guys. This is the CSL. We're at the Grand Finals. We're about to go to the Grand Finals. My name's Toffees, and I have the pleasure of sitting down with the support player from UBC who just took home the win, are prepared to go up against UConn for the big money, the big game, the big pride. This is Jeremy. You probably know him as Ko a little bit better. You are a Japanese, or studying Japanese, I should say,
Yes.
senior at University of British Columbia. Congratulations on your win, and welcome to Toronto, I guess, since you don't technically spend your time here.
Yeah, it's actually my second time. I've
Nice.
been back here since I was born.
Okay, have you guys enjoyed the city and sort of your time just hanging out?
We've actually been using surprisingly large amounts of time playing Dota, and we didn't really get a whole lot of time going around.
That's what we like to hear from the returning champions. So you guys are the returning champions. Last year you took the win home as well. This is your second year with the club, so you got to be here for that twice.
Yes.
Tell me about that. When you come in as the defending champion, is there an additional onus or pressure on the team because of that, or do you think that it frees you a little bit in the way you play?
I think the fact that we are returning champions definitely does put pressure on top of us, but when I sat down there today, I really, the first thing I noticed was I don't feel as nervous at all, compared to when I first sat down at the line last year.
Okay.
So I think it does have some upside.
So there is an upside to LAN experience. Is part of that comfort also come with your study and your preparation? Because it sounds like from our earlier chats that you really prepare for your opponents.
Oh, yes. We actually spent, funny because both our co-captain, I should say, Big Bun Theory, and
Okay.
we were both having trouble falling asleep because I think it's partly due to the pressure. So we actually spent around 8 hours
Oh, wow.
starting from 2 a.m. last night, just sitting together talking about drafts, just talking every single scenario, covering what we're going to go from here, and we just had a lot of time talking about
Did you get time to nap after that, or have you not slept since 2
it.
a.m.?
No, actually.
Intriguing. So we'll see if that comes into play in the grand finals in an hour or so. Talk to me a little bit about that game. Now, we thought UC Davis, UBC was going to be, my estimate was we were going the distance to 3. We thought for sure there was going to be a mix-up there. But you guys really played, Gorkin mentioned it, almost an old-school style of Dota, this sort of spending AoEs like the black hole on single hero kills, being comfortable, being patient, and letting Spectre farm and base and not, forcing the fights. Was that the original strategy, or was that just sort of these things evolved as the game went on?
It was partly. I would say that our original strategy maybe won't go as 5 big giant cooldown ultis that it went out, but we still have a little secret weapon up our sleeves. We don't want to talk about it yet, so.
All right, I like hearing about secret weapons. So hopefully in the grand finals we get to see UBC's secret weapon, which honestly terrifies me if the last game didn't involve a UBC secret weapon. You guys played your game. What do you think was your secret to success in those?
I think it's just that everyone on our team spends a lot of time together communicating, and we've played LANs together. We always stack together. So
Okay.
everyone knows how each other plays, so we know when to look out for another player. So we know, okay, this might be the spot where you make that mistake. It's just the time together, I think.
So you guys work not just as a club who comes together to play, but sort of plays constantly together nonstop.
Oh, yes.
Now, this is your second year with the team. You are a senior, so you're on your way out. What do you do? Assuming, let's pretend for a second that you take the whole thing home. The big trophy is yours. How do you prepare the club for your departure? Are they prepped ready to move to the next generation, or is it all going to end when you leave because you're the
I
mastermind?
feel like it's quite possible that the UBC team actually might just end here because
Fair.
we have
Unfortunate.
KCY, who's I believe have played 3 CSLs and well 3 CSLs, 4 CSLs
Yeah.
actually, and he's leaving the club, and we have Chu, our carry player, is also leaving school, and Big Bun Theory is talking about quitting Dota to focus on his family after this year, so I think it very well might just fall apart.
So then let me ask you that. If you're in a situation where this now becomes a legacy establishing tournament, right? You guys graduate and you go off on your own, you say, that was my time in Dota. Whether or not you choose to go pro, irrelevant at this time. Is that extra pressure for you guys coming in, or is it sort of like a really fun thing to spend that time with the guys?
I would definitely enjoy it together, but I mean, if we can make a legacy for ourselves,
Yeah.
like first ever CSL 2-time champion, yeah,
Back-to-back winners.
perfect.
Leave with a legend of some sort.
Yes.
Because if you guys take this, for years, they'll talk about the UBC back-to-back defending champions.
Oh yes.
So very, very cool. Good luck with that pressure. It's got to be a lot. I know I don't want to keep you too long because you have a big preparation, guys. If UConn versus UBC coming up here after our next panel group, and it's going to be a very good game. Let me ask you this last question. What is the difference to you, or how are you going to approach it differently, preparing for UC Davis, which you had almost a full month to sort of prepare for, versus University of Connecticut, which you have about an hour and a half?
I think there's absolutely no difference. We want to enter the game. We want to dictate the pace. We don't want to be responding to what they're picking. We want it the other way around.
Okay.
So we are trying to set up just drafts where if they don't deal with a threat that we're presenting, their game will just fall apart.
Awesome. And do you feel like you've already prepared for UConn before you
Oh,
even?
yes.
Okay, so
I
you
think-
prepared for all 3 teams here.
Yes.
Very, very cool. Well, you've got it. UBC seems very confident going into the next round. Hopefully it goes well, and we get to sit back down with you here after the next set of games. It's going to
meet
be
the
pretty
lot.
good news for you as well. So thank you very much. Congratulations. Good luck in the next round. And guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes with Gorgon and Zingle and their breakdown of UBC versus UC Davis.
well, not even that UCD played poorly. Do you agree with that?
That's true. There was a post about UC Davis and UBC's MMR differences. There's about 200 difference in favor of UC Davis because they have two players who are about 7K and 6K respectively. They have what we would consider pub stompers versus UBC. Do you want to say a little bit about UBC team composition?
UBC's team composition,
Yeah.
they're very balanced. Like, none of them have super all-stars like you were saying, but their teamwork, I think, is like the reason they won. They were very good together. They play, from what I've heard, like every night, even if it's just like for fun, not like scrims or anything. They play together daily. So that builds a kind of trust and teamwork that you can't really get overnight, or if you have any sort of stand-ins that we've seen throughout these teams.
Right, and their draft really favored heavy teamwork. Do you want to talk about the style of their draft? I know
Right.
you had a lot to say
So
about that.
for UBC, at least in that first game, we saw this Spectre and Zeus. Actually, we saw Spectre and Zeus in both games. They first picked it in the second
Right.
time because the strategy worked so well.
Yeah, it did
But
favor them.
They were okay letting UCD have that early aggression, early push, early pickoff that UCD did well. But once it got to pushing high ground with 7.0, with the shrines, with the treants to defend the towers, and their incredible teamwork in those defenses, no matter how well UCD did, no matter how many times UCD got knocked down and then turned it right around and got a 5-man wipe or something, they could never siege the base. And that's because UBC was so good at defending their base. Their strategy was so solid, so to speak.
Yeah, I really like what you said earlier. It was not that UCD lost, rather that UBC won.
Yeah, there were a few key fights, I think, that made me think, throughout the game, I was certain that UCD would win. And even when they would get wiped, like I was saying, they'd go immediately back, understanding the flow of the game, understanding that they needed to continue snowballing. And they did so. They were ahead up to 20K, and they were ahead the entire match. But at the same time, like I was saying, UBC was able to defend, and there's one big fight, I believe, at 50 minutes where they commit everything. They had Aegis, they had every opportunity to go. And UBC had just, like a miracle, held off after, losing only a Spectre, and they got 6 kills in return. And then UCD understood this by the end, too, because they tapped out before the throne down.
Right. The gold graph was actually in such favor of UCD. It was crazy. Right under the score bar where it says has the gold graph, it was entirely green. It was completely in favor of UCD. I think like 20K,
23K.
23K.
Yeah.
It was a huge amount. And even though UCD actually had buybacks, they actually bought back. The racks were still up, and they still GG'd out. They understood that game was over.
Mm-hmm. And then in game 2, same thing. They first and second picked Spectre and Zeus, which is somewhat unheard of, especially in the pro scene. You won't really see that because it's kind of greedy, it's kind of weird. But in the collegiate level, at least, if you have a strategy, if it works, if it ain't broken, don't fix it.
And
So
don't forget
they
that
just went with
Warlock.
what they got. And then, yeah,
The
the
fatal
Warlock
bonds
combo.
on that Warlock.
There were 3 fights in particular this game. They weren't ahead this game, or they weren't behind this game the entire game like they were in the last one. It was kind of even at the start, and there was a point where UCD could push. And there was a time that they had Aegis, they had 2 Solar Crests, they had the swap, they had everything.
And the pipe.
And the pipe. So they had every opportunity here on UCD. But once again, UBC held because they had a beautiful black hole onto 3, a fatal Warlock Golem, I believe, onto those same 3, and a Zeus ult with them all fatal bonded together. It was just insane output, insane coordination. Everything went like clockwork. It was just UBC's game, and they showed why they're here in the finals. And potentially, who knows if they're going to win it, but they definitely are looking good after that last series. I would be a little nervous.
Yeah, I caught some of the strategizing between game 1 and game 2. UCD was talking about they felt like they were very comfortable game 1. They knew they were ahead. They knew they played well, and they said, look, all we have to do for game 2 is pick something that hits towers. And that's what they did. They picked Avenge. They had the Shadow Shaman. They had Jakiro. They were like, we're just going to hit towers. It's going to be fine. Why do you think that strategy didn't work out for them?
It worked up to a point. They got the tier 2, tier 1, or they got tier 1 mid and bottom before 10 minutes. They got tier 2 at like 12 minutes. They got all of the outer tier towers. They even got the first tier 3 tower. They just kept throwing bodies at it. But the issue is UBC's team fight was able to hold again. And even though they had the sustain from the healing ward, they had the opportunities from the pipe to stay alive a little bit longer. UBC's coordination in these teams fights, especially when they were chasing, they were managing to stay on 3 different targets at the same time.
Oh my
which
gosh,
is-
I know what fight you're referring to.
Yeah, the one in the bottom, right?
Right, the one in the bottom, Juggernaut was getting gone on. Venge swaps him out, 4 staffs for self out. It looks like they're going to make a clean split, But in the end, they actually all three of them get caught, and
Yeah,
that was
these
a
are
big
plays
fight.
that you would be impressed if pro players did them because the coordination there isn't, like I was saying, it's not something you build overnight. It's not something you build in months. These players, I know 2 of them were champions last year, and they have 3 more players that they've been playing with all year. So
Right.
it's-
I mean, speaking of good plays, game 1, BG on the Storm Spirit, the amount of times that he escaped with, 5 HP, 1 charges, like, he was playing out of his mind. And
He knew the limits of the hero. There were multiple times us in the stands were just like screaming, like, "Why would you go back in?" Oh, that's why, because you knew. You
we were
knew
screaming,
something that we
Bloodstone
didn't.
suicide! Bloodstone suicide! And he wouldn't do it. He was so
You'd
patient.
get another kill and get away or
Right.
something. So overall, you would say UBC is coming out ahead because of their dominant teamwork. That's what I chalk it down to. Is their teamwork is just it's miles ahead.
It
and
is.
Their
It really
team
is.
fighting, their strategy is just very cohesive.
That's true. But I do want to say, I think UC Davis kept their cool from game 1 to game 2. Honestly, some might say that UC Davis called that GG a little too early. You know, they had all their heroes up. Yes, they did expend buybacks, but all the racks were also still up. Why did they call that GG? I think it's because they wanted to stay in the game. They stayed focused. They went into game 2 fairly happy.
Yeah, no,
I wanna commend their
think it's a
teamwork
good
as
idea.
well.
Sometimes you just have to tap out. And in a 3-man series or a 3-game series, especially if they're expecting to go to a game 3, it's it can cause more trouble to grind through that game, have it be like an 80-minute game, get to a game 3, and then still have to play in the finals afterwards. It's sometimes better just mentally and physically just to take a break.
That's true. How did you feel about UC Davis's in the game 2, around 35 minutes, they decide to all get a Midas?
It was a sign of desperation, and at that point, they're in the elimination seat. They lose that game, they're out, and that last push, it was the one that I was talking about where they had the best opportunity they had with the Aegis, multiple solar crests, the pipe, everything, and they lost it, so they figured, rather than try it again, rather than just keep throwing our bodies at them, let's change a little bit, let's try to adapt. They still were looking for the pickoffs, they were still getting solo pickoffs and good fights, and with this, and with the Midas, they were able to maybe keep up. And at that point, it was a glimmer of hope, and it was all they had left, so they had to do something. I liked the idea, although it was a little desperate.
Do you think that there was a better idea? I couldn't think of anything.
I couldn't.
personally.
That's the thing. I can't think of anything different in their seat. And also, this is as a spectator. I
know. We're sitting in the stands. We're
They're in the
relaxing. Our feet
spotlight.
is up. No one's
They are
looking at
stressed
us.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, I truly do not know what they could have done better.
Props to them. They did well. They made it top 3-4 places at CSL out of these hundreds of teams. So overall, great play. I'm looking forward to this finals, though. UConn, very convincing win over CSU. UBC, very impressive wins over UCD. I actually had UCD winning the entire tournament in my predictions, and I got one of those Ask Zingle questions.
Ooh, an Ask Zingle
Why
question.
did you say UCD over UCB? Maybe I underestimated UBC a little bit. Maybe it's because I was salty that they beat me last year in the finals. But at the end of the day, I thought UCD had what it took. They were an impressive team. I had watched and cast them in the playoffs and preseasons, and they were just incredible. And I was impressed by their plays. And like you said, they had the 2 superstars who I know are very impressive players. So I may have overestimated them. Maybe there was just an impressive draft win from UBC. I haven't kept as up to date with them. So I'm glad to eat my words. Congratulations to UBC.
So, feeling about UBC versus UConn, where do you stand on that?
I have
Don't eat your
gone
words.
against UBC before, and they crushed me 2-0 in my prediction, so I have to go for them this time. I'm not sure on the score exactly, but I predict that they will be the 2-time champion because they won last year.
That's why that's a great prediction basis. UConn, I think, plays more similarly to UBC. They are a heavy teamwork focused group. What do you think?
I agree that they're similar in the fact that they're heavily teamwork focused, but they have the opposite style in that they were very aggressive in the first 10, 20 minutes. They liked to pressure advantages and dive and screw. UBC is the exact opposite. They're the reactive, they're the defensive, they're the reactionary players. At least from these 2 games from what I saw. They might have different strategies. Like Toffees was just talking with Ko in the interview, and they were saying they have a secret weapon still or something along those lines.
Secret weapon.
So I'm excited to see that.
Do you think it's easier to play defensive rather than aggressive?
Dota's not an easy game. I don't know
Dota
if
is
one
not
way
an
is
easy
easier
game.
than the other. I don't know if it's.
But do you
I don't
think
think
holding
you can
high
simplify
ground
to that. Holding high ground is a
versus
little bit
winning
easier.
early?
It
Yeah.
reminds me of 6.83 when you could hold high ground with sniper
Right.
or something and just come back, and the comeback mechanics are linked to team gold net worth advantage rather than just your own. So it does, harken back to the 6.83 days a little bit, where holding high ground is a good strategy, but I'm not going to say it is better by any means.
Well, okay, if you won't say it, then I'll say it. Personally, I think holding high ground is easier.
All right.
I think it's easier to position yourself in a place where you're not going to get picked off than to find the pickoffs.
All right. Well, with that, I think that's pretty much all I have to say about UBC is that, they're a great teamwork defensive team.
And in terms of MMR, I think UBC is higher than UConn. So
I'm
the
not sure.
individual skill level, if I remember the graph correctly, since they're both heavily teamwork, and they, you said there's a different play style. So we'll have to see how that comes down, whether or not UConn can keep maintaining that early aggressiveness. If they can break high ground against UBC, then I think UConn has a pretty good chance.
I think it's a good matchup.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Though I have to agree with you that I think UBC will, in the end, take it home.
Well, we will see this later, right after I believe there is going to be a panel, and then the grand finals will be beginning. So thank you for listening to our short little analysis. I was a single. This is Alaska. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll be back to you soon. I'm tired and hot.
Thank you.